and we're trying to educate and communicate with the public constantly. And I suppose a microforest, because it grows so quickly, it's fantastic because in their lifetime they're going to see a forest grow around them.
Well, we'll be discovering the Horniman's aims for space throughout today's programme. Alongside Errol, we have the three courageous explorers raring to go. From Hampshire, it's intrepid collector of pests and diseases, Pippa Greenwood. From Stamford, it's an anthropologist's dream, garden designer Bunny Guinness. And from London, it's houseplant hunter Jane Wall. Your Gardeners Question Time panel, welcome all. Hello. Well, let's take our first question.
Hello, panel. My name is Richard English, and I live in Chilwell, near Nottingham. I have an ever-increasing number of blind daffodils that are planted around the edge of the lawn and under the fruit trees in the orchard. They are all leaves. Can I expect these bulbs to ever flower again, or would I be best to dig them up and discard them?
Bunny, what do we mean by blind daffodils?
It means they're not flowering, they're not doing the very stuff that we love. Daffodils, it can be a fly that people put our slice on this that can sort of lay its eggs in the top and cause that, but it often is dry. So I'm on a very dry soil, and if we have a dry late summer or a dry summer, they do tend to come up a bit blind. In Nottingham, I would have thought they would be moister than me. I do find that different varieties have different levels of blindness, and definitely the native daffodil for me doesn't flower as much, but I love it. But there are other ones that are much more reliable, so maybe go for something with obviously the type you like, but just try another variety. So tell us about this fly. Well, it's called the Narcissus bulbfly, but if you've got that, it would also be if it was trying to make the clothes look really dreadful if you start to like that. I'm sure it's not that, but in addition to those things like dryness, it certainly if you double brand, because there's a lot of your petals, they tend to go blind quicker. The other thing is some running out of plastic, so that they really then they're going to get short on those as well as possible. So what I would do now is make sure that the close is blind, so you can just have a decent amount in, so that when they go back, I would now also weed over the
wet marshland. Grow there now asparagus, dollies, brambles, and some sort of larchmix. We would love some advices towards vegetables and fruits, the best grow there, how to treat the very loamy soil.
It sounds like quite an unusual site for a lot of this, isn't it? It's usually lack of water that's the factor.
And it is a little exciting on a so I really think it's an extreme situation for such a lot of neighbours, because they're going to pull back the struggling and come out the other side and stuff there. But other than that, most clients don't really that there must be reasonable drainage most of the time, because raspberries don't like sitting wet. I'm not saying they want it really dry, but they wouldn't like that. I would say the first thing to do, though, other than talking to everyone, is to get on and improve the soil. So anything you can do to improve drainage, so I'm talking digging in organic matter, bulky organic matter, maybe even digging in some horticultural grit, anything that's going to lighten a bit, leaf mould, and start collecting material that can make your own organic matter again.
Okay. Yeah, when we think about the traditional allotment crops we tend to grow, they're in very large parts of the Mediterranean, so dry, well-drained soils, it can be quite tricky. However, there are plants that are edible that come from much wetter environments, and there are a range of even both plants that are edible. So you have that slightly more left-of-field rhubarb, Rheum palmatum. Now, this is the original rhubarb that tended to be eaten long before Rheum officinalis, which is the standard one. So if you're wanting to have the most original, most historic form of rhubarb, that's what to go for. You can also do things like wasabi that grows in water. You can go for things like cranberries. There's even the Onanthe javanica flamingo that is really popularly eaten in places like Java. I hate it because it tastes just like celery. But as long as you're happy with that, that's fine. So the only thing I would specify, apart from the fact that I don't like it, is that Onanthe, there is a native Onanthe which is toxic. But Onanthe javanica flamingo, which is, you can't mix it up, it's got fluorescent pink edges to it, and it always comes labeled in God very clearly. That one is definitely good.
There you go, Anna, there is hope, so it should be okay. Right, let's see what we got next.
Sophie O'Sullivan, Wallingford, Oxfordshire. As the growing season starts, I'm relining some old raised beds where the level of the earth has sunk down. I'm a fan of frugal culture. My question is, can I safely use old U-bolts to line the bottom of these beds, or will the harvested fruit and veg kill me?
So a couple of things to pick that up, I think. First, what is frugal culture? Aaron, have you come across it?
Yes, I have come across it actually. It's essentially where you dig a trench in the ground, fill it with sort of rotting timber, or it might be quite freshly cut timber. A combination of both is good. You have the more fresh timber at the bottom, and as you get up closer to the surface, that means that it starts to decompose a little bit more, and soil on top of that. It essentially allows you to cram in more produce in a smaller area, because you can plant all the sides of that mound, and the timber, as it slowly rots, essentially creates a sort of a central furnace that creates nutrients and heat. Yeah, they're really wonderful things.
Pippa, is it going to kill her? I guess she's thinking that there are toxins in you.
Yeah, do you know, I love, as you do, look at, I have a windowsill inside the house built out of rotten wood, so it's got lots of holes in it, obviously there's bark around the edges. So I just keep thinking, gosh, what a waste of lovely timber to use it for a raised bed, but then it is very resilient, so maybe it does, so maybe it would be a good candidate. And I can't see that there's anything that's going to come out of the timber and cause any sort of reaction. I must admit, I was thinking, would it in any way impact on plant growth? Because sometimes that will happen. You'll have a plant that sheds, whether it's foliage or fruit or something, into the ground to almost act as a inhibitor to other plants germinating or growing. I don't think there's going to be any risk of that, I must admit. I don't think it's going to be an issue. It's certainly, I don't think it's a human health issue.
James, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. So Taxol is the key component that's kind of used as toxic. I don't believe it has any toxicity to other plants. It's there to prevent mammals and insects from eating you. I think if that is properly broken down and buried underneath, and there's no risk of any leaves or foliage mixing in. You know, if this is a new bed.
I personally hate seeing it cut from tree trunks. We row about this at home actually sometimes because there is also the other argument that yes, you can always get a strangulation effect with certain species, but also that the more you increase the leafy area on the tree, if you get strong winds, the more likely it's going to have that create that sail effect, and you're going to get a wind-blown tree. I rather like it. So I suppose I would say if you've got to do something to it, thin it out. But I'm not one to do that. The other problem is it can hide decay. So if you do have decay developing on the trunk, you might not be aware of it because it's eaten by ivy.
I do wonder about the legality of this as well. If Rob is wandering around private woodland or public woodland and sort of pulling plants off things, then
Somebody else's trees. If they belong to someone else, whatever you do to their plants, you should have their permission. So since you don't go around pulling up wildflowers or picking wildflowers, you shouldn't really be doing anyway, to my mind. You certainly don't go and do it on somebody else's land. So I can tell you, he would find himself in an interesting position if my cousin married him.
There you go, Rob. Okay, we're going to move on to fruit trees now. Alex Maltby is in the Cotswolds.
I have a 5-year-old peach tree that is suffering from peach leaf curl. It didn't bear fruit at all last year. I'm assuming it needs to be dug out. My question is, can I replace it with another peach tree, or is the spot now forever blighted with peach leaf curl?
Pippa, pest and disease expert, what do you say?
Well, if you want something that's really like out of horror movie on a disease, but then it's a peach leaf curl. It's caused by a fungus that's called Tephryna deformans, which just tells you it's stingy. So the leaf almost ruptures out. It looks like it's developed some pustules on it. It's not actually pustules. It's swelling parts of the raised areas and sort of bubbling almost that turn, instead of being a fairly pale green colour leaf, it
我哋翻到去勁啲啊， 細 BB 仲瞓緊啊。
sometimes a bright red colour. Then it gets rather more boring because you get a layer of spores over the leaf. So it looks almost like it's conducted with flower. But there's me waxing lyrical about it, but it will make the leaves drop early, and if it happens recurrently, it can weaken a tree, so then it can be an issue. I'd still say it's not the biggest issue, and I've never seen it kill a tree that it's attacking. So I've seen it maybe weaken it a bit, but basically I don't think it kills. If it was mine, and I love my peach tree, and you must be loving it, thinking of replacing it with another one, I personally would do what I could to try and control it. And there's not a lot really you can do unless it's trained against storm, but you can put shelter over it temporarily at the right time of year. It's freestanding. What you can do to do, where possible, is pitch out those limbs before they develop the right to cause help reduce the spread. But it's hinged in the bud scales, in the bark, and everything else. So a couple come back, they're going to feed the tree and nurture it to make it better able to live. I certainly wouldn't take it out home. I would try harder for it to cut, and I certainly wouldn't replace the peach with another peach of the same brand because you're likely to get a because of that.
Got my bit of TLC anyway, Alex, to try and get it through. Okay, so this road really is freezing up, is it? So let's try and find somewhere a little bit more sheltered and away from this noisy, busy road as well. Errol, help us out.
I'd love to take you to see our central plant. So we've been developing this over the last 3 years, moving away from intensively cultivated annual bedding display, and we curated it in line with the taxidermy birdie and vertebrate collection at the museum. So I think you'll find it really interesting.
Okay, let's break the huddle and we're going for it.
打呀，哥哥。
But even if you didn't like spiders, to say you can't go outside because there's so many webs, and as you say, it does conjure images of that nasty nylon spider web stuff you buy in the package in the supermarket at Halloween. I think it must be something really quite interesting there, if that's really all it is.
I think that it was more interesting what you said about the predation, because what I don't have in my tiny little East London garden is any birds. Because they're terrified of the cats. There's too many cats. And I also do believe the reason we've got such a concentration of spiders is because actually our garden is quite a haven in the street. So we allow absolutely. So we allow the trees and the plants to stand and grow. So there's somewhere for the spiders to make their webs on. And a lot of our neighbours, unfortunately, do have paved over their gardens. So there's a concentration.
Dimba, whistling.
I'm aware that many people are scared of spiders, and unfortunately, my wife and my daughter are a little bit, well, terrified to be and so what we found can work quite well is growing aromatic herbs. We don't like them, so rosemary, thyme, basil, and that's quite pleasant. So apparently, I'm not sure, I don't know the
The
science
line
behind it,
cutters in cars.
So,
你見唔見到頭先我車？咦
And if people hadn't got this
右左右右右左右右。
bird population was low, maybe we have to make a big concentrated effort to bring in the birds.
absolutely. I think generally with a situation where you've got one species that's creating a problem, you just need a balance.
It's imbalance is always the problem, but also if it's particularly
Look at the house. They have the windows now.
then say you had 10 of them, it would make much more webbing than
They
maybe
made a lot more progress.
spider. If you had 10 of those as well, that's what I'm saying.
I think we're so lucky in this country to have that opportunity as kids to be able to look at all this wildlife so up close and be totally safe. You know, when I was growing up running around, I found a cobra in my shoes. My aunt had a python in her sofa. You can't commune with the natural world in the same way. I mean, there's a lot more biodiversity, but a lot of it's terrifying, like legit terrifying. So it's a great way to be able to see the natural world and be able to get over your fear of it.
Okay, let's take another question.
Hello panel, my name is Anna Erskine and I'm a
你
beginner
唔同唔同嗰啲人
gardener
玩啊，
from
嗰個。
My 6-year-old daughter is really keen on the idea of creating a rock garden and I'd love to encourage her curiosity. We have a patch of earth about 1 metre square in a shady spot under our honeysuckle tree. I'm looking for some advice for how we start. Does it matter what kind of rocks? Where should we get them from? And what kind of plants should we grow?
By the way, neither of us are prudish or anti-sex.
really learned what was in porn. I've learned that there were categories based on race, based on age, based on all these.
Hello, Michael Johnson talking from Somerset. Thank you to BBC Women's Hour for making such an intelligent and thought-provoking series. As a father of a daughter coming into teenage years, really made me think about the safeguarding measures I will need to put in place to keep my daughter safe.
This is Jane from Streatham, London. Women's Hour has been a part of my life for years, but I must object to the current series on pornography and the way in which Women's Hour has so dramatically changed to become a programme I'd rather not listen to.
Can you spell it out? Because we're going there on this series. When you say how sex acts work, what do you mean specifically?
I would say that, for example, with oral sex,
I enjoy hearing different perspectives of those sharing their stories, regardless of gender. It's so insightful. It is also useful to hear from men of all different age ranges who learn from watching porn. I hope Women's Hour does not shy away from topics like this in the future as we need to hear them. Kate Davis, Cartmel, Capria, please, someone do something to rein in the current Women's Hour preoccupation with masturbation, pornography, and general modelling culture.
Out there who are using pornography more so now than ever before because of how easy it is to access, and might not be entirely happy with everything that they're coming across.
Women's Hour is broadcast at 10 a.m, but with the current content, I think 10 p.m. would be a better time. I would also suggest that if the discussion was about men doing the same thing, there would be an outcry.
An avid Women's Hour listener from Salisbury, I feel Women's Hour has tried to present all viewpoints professionally and empathetically. The interview I heard on Monday's programme left me so emotionally. One is a topic that nobody talks about, and I take my hat off to Women's Hour for looking underneath this taboo.
Women's Hour were unable to put anyone forward for interview, but they did give us this statement.
Women's Hour doesn't shy away from taboo topics and does so in the considered and sensitive way our listeners expect. Discussing pornography is not new to Women's Hour. It's a topic which is culturally relevant and yet often under-discussed. Women have told us that they are concerned about how porn use is affecting their relationships and sex lives. Yet most women don't feel able to talk openly about it, leaving them feeling confused and isolated. Radio 4 has an adult audience, and this topic is handled in a manner that is appropriate for the time of broadcast. We are always very careful to signpost clearly subject matter or language to help audiences to make informed choices about their listening.
Now, one listener to Women's Hour got in touch to give us her take on the porn series. She believes it's exactly the type of topic the programme should be covering. In fact, as it turns out, she's an expert on stigmatised subjects. Ruth McDermott is a sensitive storytelling consultant. Yeah, I didn't know what that was either, but her job is to coach organisations in navigating extra sensitive issues on public platforms. And she joins me now. Ruth, you do spend your working life helping others talking about taboo subjects like pornography. So how do you think Women's Hour is doing?
I think they're doing absolutely brilliantly. I feel like Women's Hour are absolutely the correct programme to be talking about this kind of thing. From what I've heard, they're doing it ethically, they're doing it sensitively, they're doing it professionally, and they're doing it appropriately for the time of day. So I'm really pleased that they're tackling something so difficult to talk about. If issues like this aren't talked about, then it leads to the feelings of shame, it leads to the feelings of absolute stigmatisation, and it leaves no place for topics like this to be discussed in the mainstream. And I feel like a flagship Radio 4 programme with a demographic of 49% male and 51% female is the right place to talk about something that affects pretty much everybody in this life now.
Now, we did hear from listeners who have found these conversations valuable and insightful, but others have not only concerns, but they just don't want to hear about it. Jane, for example, contacted us.
Come on, Women's Hour, lighten up a bit. Let's celebrate women and focus less on our bodily functions and more on our intelligence, creativity, and amazing humour.
Ruth, as someone who helps organisations deal with difficult subjects, is it possible to talk openly about something like the effects of pornography without offending some listeners?
I feel like it's really difficult to please everybody all the time, and that might be something that is said quite a lot on this show, but people obviously will have different kind of standards, different personal standards for what they feel is appropriate for different times of day. And I would question just anybody who is complaining that it isn't appropriate, that it makes them feel uncomfortable, to kind of just sit with that feeling and to ask themselves why it makes them feel uncomfortable and what it is about the topic that makes them feel uncomfortable, and to reframe their focus and the takeaway for them as being an empathetic one. So approaching the lived experience stories that we're hearing from Women's Hour and listening to them with compassion and empathy rather than sort of with outrage. Ironically, I do kind of feel like one of the reasons why people feel uncomfortable listening to topics such as this is because it's not talked about. So if we were able to kind of bring a topic such as pornography and the impacts and effects it has on relationships into the public domain more, people would feel less uncomfortable with it.
Ruth, you work in teaching people to navigate around taboo subjects, and our perceptions do change over time. I mean, if you think about how taboo the menopause was, only a few years ago, and now it really is talked about much more openly. I wonder what kind of impact it does have when you give a stigmatized subject like porn a platform, or airtime in this case.
I think what it does is it makes people feel less alone. So I think that, you know, from kind of fairly light topics such as the menopause all the way through to something like pornography or child sexual abuse, the more we talk about these things, the less uncomfortable people will feel and the less places that shame will have to hide and fester.
Ruth McDermott, sensitive storytelling consultant and listener to Women's Hour, thank you for giving us your thoughts. And of course, I would really like to hear what you think about our Women's Hour series on pornography, which is still running and is also available on Science, or indeed anything you've heard on BBC Audio. One quick and easy way to do that is just to find yourself a quiet corner and record a WhatsApp voice note and send it to 03 333 444 544. You can also ring the same number and leave a voice message. Our email is feedback@bbc.co.uk, and we are at BBC Radio 4 on social media. Last week on the programme, I spoke to Radio 4 controller Mohit Bakaya about the schedule changes that are coming into play on April the 1st. He answered your questions and comments about, among other things, the Archers Omnibus moving and the media show being extended. But the interview prompted a big reaction.
He has clearly shown that he is really able to touch with Radio 4 listeners.
Jamie Brown is my name. It would appear to me gratuitously upsetting. Incredibly gratuitous. Can't believe it. Hilary Roscoe, the revamped schedule has been designed to give audiences what they want most when they want it, but no information about what we might still want to hear, but will go into. I am not going to discuss the schedule. Taking notes on what we will lose as well as what we will gain would be welcome.
Hello, Feedback. It's Gareth in Bath here. I was very surprised at how outraged some of your correspondents were when they discovered that the new schedule doesn't fit their personal circumstances perfectly.
But there was one part of our interview with Mohit Bakaya that attracted particular attention. Did you consult the audience on this?
We did audience research. That's how we consult the audience. Audience research is consulting the audience. We find out, we look at audience and we also talk.
Terry Pearce, BBC management always refer to audience research when justifying their actions. Such research is never made available to the public. Anyone who knows anything about the psychology of this sort of research knows it has more to do with how the questions are posed.
Joe Hayden from Somerset also publicising the change to the general public some months in advance. Audience research involves consult to only a limited number of people, and we don't know what changes were made as a result.
Hello, this is Lawrence Wales. Yet another controller tells the listening public what to listen to and when. Where are the results of the representative? We have decided to and what are the justifications?
So what role did audience research play in the decision to rejig the schedule? How was it conducted? How was it asked to take part? I'll be getting answers to those questions, or certainly trying my best to, from Alison Winter, the BBC's for Radio and Education, in next week's Feedback. So do please let us know if you've got any other questions and I'll put them to you. Now to one schedule change which has roused many listeners' passions. Tweet of the Day on Radio 4 has been a waking call for many of us for the past 11 years. For those who don't know the laughs, it's 90 seconds of birdsong just before 6 a.m. But from April it will disappear from the weekday schedule. Tweet of the Day becomes Tweet of the Week and will now go out only on Sundays. Here's Mohit Bakaya's explanation.
Well, we're not practicing it actually. We're for the first time in a long time new today.
We've been Monday to Friday. It's
Monday to Friday is going to make it Father's Day because we think it's important to give Father's Day as much time as possible. But we've been repeating Tweet of the Day because we haven't been able to afford to run it 5 days a week for quite a while now. So these have not been repetitions; they've been repeats. What we're now doing is putting in new repeats on a Sunday for the audience, which of course will be there for people to listen to on Sundays and throughout the week themselves. But we haven't been able to do 6 days, haven't we?
Well, since that announcement, many listeners have made it abundantly clear that once a week is just enough.
Hello, Feedback. My name is Ruth from Farnham in Surrey, and I'm so sad to hear that Tweet of the Day is to be reduced to Tweet of the Week. I listened to Michael Palin on The World of One on Monday, and he gave a very good defence for it.
I think it was a very good start of the day, although I have to admit I was always asleep, never heard it very often. But the idea of starting the day with the birds was rather calming. It was like a little interlude. And I mean, if it cost too much, then obviously other presenters were getting paid more than I was. So the deal is that. And I'm very sad. It was a very English thing to do, and I think it was, as far as I know, much loved.
Surely there are other programmes that could be managed better to reduce their costs, which would allow our lovely 2 minutes of nature each morning to continue.
Jeffrey Mallet calling from Esher. Tweet of the Day, only once a week. No, no, no. It's so harsh and ridiculous to remove this beloved 2-minute little jewel from the daily schedule.
This is Deborah Hackett from Dealing in Perthshire. I think it is an excellent idea to give the time taken up with Tweet of the Day back to Farming Today, which is too short now. I won't miss the daily tweet at all, as I think it has run its course.
Hello, this is Jane from Hastings. Please do not let them take away the daily tweet. Now more than ever in this time of terrible nature depletion in the UK, we need to hear the birds singing. Otherwise we will forget what they sound like and forget to fight for their survival. Please don't silence the birds.
Well, as Tweet of the Day has struck such a chord with so many of you, we thought we'd delve a little deeper into how the recordings are actually made. Chris Watson, a wildlife sound recordist, has recorded many of the bird songs you might wake up to.
People always enjoy waking up to bird song, and that was, for me, the success of the daily occurrence. We hear bird song and bird sounds all around us on a daily basis throughout all the seasons. And so there'll be a whole fiddly in radio terms of where the birds aren't singing on weekday mornings, perhaps something more in the chorus at weekends. Like in any wildlife film or television or radio program, the performers aren't that predictable. You can identify where they'll be and at what time, but can't guarantee that they're going to perform. And so it's a time-consuming process, but I really value that time on location. What I've really loved about recording the Tweet of the Day is that it's a very individual, solo process. You cannot share that moment when you're out on location wearing headphones. But what I love about Tweet of the Day is that when those songs are broadcast, my work is then broadcast to a much wider audience of potentially millions of people worldwide.
So I can take people to the place where that bird was seen with my microphone and go from this idea, this solo idea of just hearing the birds through a headphone to then hearing it broadcast internationally on the radio. I think one of the keys to the success of Tweets of the Day is that intimate sound. The sounds recorded for Tweets of the Day are very close up in terms of perspective. So there's a clarity and there's an individual perspective to it, which really helps you focus your attention on these sounds, because you hear them in a way that we don't often hear bird song. If I go and stand outside in my back garden, I can hear blackbirds, throbbers, wrens, rooters, craters, chaffinches, but they're widely spaced and they're sort of in some respects in the background. The really beautiful idea of Tweets of the Day is it allows you, in a short period, to focus on the individual songs of particular birds, and that can really transform us as apart from being just life-affirming and energising and interesting and exciting. It's hearing the natural world in from quite a unique perspective, and I think that's why people warm to it, because they've got something interesting to tune into and take with them for the rest of the day. It can be quite a challenge. The black grouse featured here were recorded in the Highlands of Scotland in the middle of April, just above Aviemore. So it was cold, but it was very dry. And black grouse display, they have a communal display site called a lek, and the male birds gather basically to impress the females around mid to late April. And they do these incredible dances and choreographed movements, but they also call. Not really song, but they have these powerful explosive bursts of song and these hisses and crackles as the males rival each other. So I had to put microphones very carefully around the lek side, which is perhaps 10 metres across, and then bury microphone cables so they couldn't disturb the birds. These tiny microphones, and bury the cables back to the edge of the forest, where I then had to bivouac and spend the night out there in the forest, so the microphones were in place for when the birds arrived at 4 o'clock the following morning. And a lot of this display, the sounds that you're hearing, were actually made in the darkness before dawn. I think I'll enjoy hearing some new episodes of the Tweets of the Day, but one thing I think that was always important to me is the singular aspect. So because Tweets of the Day appeared on a daily basis, there was a familiarity, perhaps not always a recognition of the species, but you could wake up to the song of an individual bird. And there's really something energising about that, something life-affirming on a daily basis. It always sets me up for the day, just hearing the sounds of the natural world before I even go outside.
Well, thank you to Tweet of the Day sound recorders Chris Watson. And just a reminder that Feedback is one of the programmes affected by those schedule changes. From April, I'll be here on Thursdays at 3:30 p.m. rather than Friday. Our Sunday programme remains the same, and of course all episodes of Feedback are available anytime on BBC Science. Hit the subscribe button, the programme will appear every week in your personal feed. Plenty of ways to listen, and thank you so much for listening and giving us your feedback. Goodbye.
Feedback was presented by Andrea Catherwood. The producer was Leanne Coyle. It was a Whistledown Scotland production for Radio 4. And if you'd like to air your views on anything you've heard on BBC Audio, you can email feedback@bbc.co.uk. You can leave a voice message or send us a WhatsApp voice note. The number is 03333 444 544. On social media, it's @BBC R4 Feedback.
On BBC Radio 4, have you got any idea who it's going to be tonight? How is it dark comedy? What's the matter with you? You're always asking me questions. Part of a collection of rediscovered dramas.
No, just London. Stop London. You've got a job to do.
Bob Hoskins and Roy Kinnear star as hitmen waiting for a victim.
We proved ourselves before that happened.
On Radio 4 and BBC Sounds.
What's the idea? What's he playing these games for?
Hidden Treasures, The Dumb Waiter.
That's
on Sunday afternoon at 3.
And following that, you can hear how this and other dramas were rediscovered and restored in a special programme, Hidden Treasures, that's Sunday at 3:45. This is BBC Radio 4, it's 5 o'clock, time to PM with Anita Arnott.
Good evening, welcome to PM. Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will launch a ground offensive in Rafah with or without US support. American Secretary of State had this warning in response.
A major military ground operation in Rafah risks killing more civilians. It risks further isolating Israel around the world and jeopardizing its long-term security and standing.
As a new attempt at a ceasefire fails at the United Nations, what next for international diplomacy? I can speak to a former...
你这还有按那个手机啊？看有多久啊？真的，我没办法讲啊。
不用讲了。began 5 months ago. That's according to the United Nations Children Agency, UNICEF. It's a death toll that UNICEF describes as staggering. The assault on Gaza was sparked by the Hamas attacks on Israel on October the 7th, which killed around 1,200 Israelis, most of them civilians. Since then, many children in Gaza have lost their parents in Israeli attacks, and the overall death toll in the Hamas-run territory now stands at over 32,000. That's according to their own health ministry. Our senior international correspondent, Paula Guerin, has been speaking to one little girl who lost her family.
A shout from under the rubble. I'm Alma. You see my light? Asks Mahmoud, the rescue worker. I swear I'll get to you. Alma asks for her sister and brothers. Bravo, Alma, he says, as she emerges after 3 hours buried alive. Where are your brothers and sister? He asks. They're over here, she says, and my mom is over there. I am 12 years old and the only survivor of my family. The first place we fled to was bombed, and the second. And in the third place, the bomb hit us. They were all killed. We were happy together as a family, though we were scared. We used to hug each other tightly out of fear. I hoped my brother would still be alive. I was calling out to him. I found him in an unimaginable state. His head severed. What a memory for a child to carry. I wish for that after seeing my brother like that. He was only 18 months old. What has he done in this war?
Well, you heard our colleague Paula Guerin speaking to Alma. She joins us now from East Jerusalem. How many more children like Alma are there in
her aunt and uncle, or rather they did on our behalf to get permission to speak to her. We got the rescue video, we checked the details and we verified her story, but she is undoubtedly one of very many.
Paula, thank you very much. Alma's story is a snapshot of misery in a conflict that seems to have no end. This afternoon, for the first time since this conflict began, America tabled draft resolution for an immediate ceasefire at the United Nations Security Council, but the pause at a ceasefire. In the end, their resolution, however, was vetoed after Russia and China said no. Russia becoming the voice of dissent. Here's what the Russian ambassador to the United Nations had to say. His words have been translated.
From the very onset, it was clear that the so-called negotiations which our U.S. colleagues have been engaged in on this issue have been focused mere to drag out the time. All of our comments, all of our red lines were time and time disregarded, as were the proposals of a number of other delegations. This was some kind of an empty rhetorical exercise rather than normal work on a document. The American product is exceedingly politicized.
Ambassador Vassily Nebenzia continues to direct accusations against the United States and its supporters.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you do this, you will cover yourselves in disgrace.
The United States, for its part, also accused Russia and China of pursuing their own interests with their vote. This is Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield.
The second reason behind this veto is not just cynical, it's also Russia and China simply did not want to vote for a resolution that was pinned by the United States because they would rather see us fail than to see this council succeed.
So we're in a seemingly very peculiar situation now where all parties at the United Nations agree there should be a ceasefire, but they can't agree to a form of words. Where does that leave the humanitarian situation in Gaza? Well, Sir Stephen O'Brien was the Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator at the United Nations from 2015 to 2017. During that time, he was involved in rebuilding efforts in both Syria and Iraq, and he's with us now. First of all, just your reaction to that resolution that was put before the Security Council and yet another failure to pass a ceasefire.
Good evening, Anita. Well, I think, like everybody listening to the developments today, it leaves one essentially extremely downcast because we just want any step to make progress of advocacy and leverage persuasion that Anthony Blinken is trying to bring upon the Israelis, because he is by far the most influential person. I'm staggered that Prime Minister Netanyahu, supported no doubt by some very extreme thinking in his coalition government, are determined to go ahead, notwithstanding they won't have US or other support, but they will become more isolated.
Can I just ask you, to be blunt, what is the point of the United Nations?
Well, the point of the United Nations, apart from that it has, through its charter, its absolute validity, draft, settlement, its basis of the international rules-based order, it is the reason why it is completely right to support Israel's desire to go after the terrorists, that absolute atrocity may have, because Hamas only exists to terrorize Israel and the Israeli nation. It is right that the Israeli state, and the United Nations composed of states, has that ability. But at the same time, it is also there to protect us from possible conflict, have a framework of peace and security. It is grown obviously to have many other purposes, to try and relieve poverty, and increasingly it is now focused on climate change. But without the UN, we will be back to a structure of simply a series of bilateral and other alliances, which will be even less predictable, albeit that those will be necessarily coalitions of the willing, which obviously get an even greater amount of polarization. So I don't think it's right to say that the UN has no point. What we do have a right to say is the UN in practice is not stepping up to the challenges of the day, because we've got this structural problem at the Security Council, which holds all the powers when it comes to peace and security, where the veto is being wielded for reasons which are other than politicking, and I think it was completely fair for Linda Thomas-Greenfield, the US ambassador to the UN, to call that not just politicking but petty.
Thank you very much for your time. That's Stephen O'Brien, formerly the Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs at the United Nations. It's 5:20. Here's John with some of today's other headlines.
A man who fatally poisoned a married couple with fentanyl and rewrote their wills has been sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 37 years. Investors have approved a deal to turn Donald Trump's social media platform, Truth Social, into a publicly traded company, in a possible boost to the former president's finances in the face of huge legal bills. And the International Maritime Organization says for the first time, countries have agreed to set a universal fee for each ton of greenhouse gases emitted by ships.
John, thank you very much. South Wales Police has confirmed that the synthetic opioid nitazene has been identified in connection with 4 deaths in Her Majesty's Prisons, I beg your pardon, Park in Bridgend. Our Home Affairs correspondent Daniel Sanford is here. How significant are these deaths?
I think it's very significant. There have been 6 mystery thefts of HMP Park since the end of February. 2 of those have now been discounted as being sort of explicable by other means. But 4 of these deaths in HMP Park in less than a month have been linked to these synthetic opioid nitazines, which your listeners will probably remember can be as dangerous or fentanyl or up to 10 times more potent than fentanyl and therefore 500 times more potent than heroin. This is the first time we've had a really significant cluster of deaths in a prison. Of course, when drugs get into prison, it's a very chaotic environment, and there is a risk that when a batch of drugs gets in this case it seems to have come in disguised as spice, it's completely lethal and a very, very dangerous situation, and that seems to be the situation at HMP Park now.
I mean, are we to take it that HMP Park is a litmus test for what's going on in wider society?
I think it is. There's also been outbreaks in some prisons in Ireland, but yes, I do think that it's a sign of the fact that these nitazines have gone beyond the original cluster in Birmingham and the cluster that's been seen in London as well, and have now got out into a wider drug supply. And HMP Park has said that they're fortunate the families of friends in prisons who've died, and that they are working tirelessly to reduce supply and demand in the prison.
Daniel Southwood, thank you very much. Chinese connected electric vehicles could be Trojan horses just waiting to destabilise the UK. So says the Institute of the Motor Industry in a submission to MPs. Fears revolve around the idea that China could turn things off, effectively turning the UK into an enormous gridlock. So should we be worried? Is this technically possible? Well, Charles Parton is a former diplomat who spent 22 years working in China. He's now an associate fellow at the Royal United Services Institute. Charles, thank you very much for being with us. Every so often you get these stories, and I wonder, how much is there sort of the scare factor and how much is there truth behind this?
Bit of both, I would say. I mean, I've been working on this for several years now, and I think it's a very serious problem. Cars are, in the latest cliche, computers on wheels. So if you give easy access to those cars, to those computers, which is what you're doing, if you have a Chinese car with a particular device in it, it's called a cellular Internet of Things module, and you can see that's a gateway to all the systems in the car, whether that's the audio, visual, the performance, communication. So there's data going in and out of cars at a massive rate all the time. I mean, people already have hands-free driving, that so possible basically moving towards automated cars. So, I mean, I think the threats are not just it could turn off these vehicles, just as John Deere did with its tractors and other agricultural machinery which the Russians stole from Ukraine through the cellular module and turned it off, and it becomes a lump of metal. Is BYD or another Chinese company car going to do that? Car company can do that? Pretty unlikely. Crash their sales. But they could. And in the meantime, a vast amount of data going there. You sync your iPhone, you can do CarPlay, and the data on that is until now. You have talking about cars. That audio can go. Cars have very good cameras. Car drives into a military base or intelligence facility or whatever it is. You can do facial recognition from those cars if you've got other data to put it against. I mean, the list goes on. So the threats exist, both to the data and to the ability to mobilize it. And I think it's
precedent for it, and each time it causes a little bit of a rumpus, as has happened today. But actually, in the longer term, these often become items that fans will collect, and items of that go into museums away down the line, because it's seen moments of innovation that actually the continuity is much stronger than the innovation that's been introduced.
Okay, I mean, I'm interested that they say this is a hat tip to 1966. Do you see it, and how is it a hat tip to 1966?
Yeah, I do kind of get it in terms of Alf Ramsey being an important tracksuit manager, and stuff that was happening in 1974 when Admiral get involved, and the very bright and branded kits that Admiral introduced. The colours, again, the colour palette changed radically from the plain red and white shirts that England had worn before. and then leap forward to 1996, and people who went along to the Euros on home soil will remember the scandalous homegrown indigo blue kit, which there was no precedent for, and the firm later admitted was actually to be worn with denim jeans. So the England team ran out in this indigo blue kit, which was actually grey, because it was designed for fans to be worn with jeans. And again, absolutely a rumpus at the time, but now fans collect those kind of kits as a form of nostalgia for those previous tournaments.
Well, Alyssa, thanks very much for speaking to us. Professor Jean Williams, a historian of sports kits. Let's find out what's going on with any questions tonight. Here's Alex Forsyth. Hi, Alex.
Hello, good evening, Anita. Hello from St Leonard's Church in Hythe on the Kent coast. A church which has stood on the hill overlooking the town of Hythe for more than 1,000 years. It is actually known by some as the Church of the Bones, because in its crypt, which is right below where I'm currently sitting, is one of the largest and best preserved collections of human skulls and bones in the UK. I went to see them earlier. Fascinating. But here's a discussion rather than the bones, is the Conservative MP and former Deputy Prime Minister Damien Green, the Labour MP and Chair of the Public Accounts Committee Dame Meg Hillier, the former Supreme Court Justice Lord Sumption, and the author and journalist Grace Blakeley. They'll be arriving in a couple of hours. Please join us when we are live at 8 p.m.
Certainly will. Thank you very much. It is now 31 minutes past 5, and here's John Hammond with the news.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said a planned ground assault on the city of Rafah in southern Gaza will go ahead with or without US support. More than a million displaced civilians are sheltering there. He was speaking after meeting America's top diplomat, Antony Blinken, for talks about a possible ceasefire and the release of hostages. As he was leaving Tel Aviv, Mr. Blinken warned that the military offensive on Rafah would isolate Israel internationally. He said a different approach would be laid out to Israeli officials visiting Washington next week. Russia and China have blocked a draft US resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza linked to the release of hostages by Hamas. Both countries told the UN Security Council they objected to placing conditions on a pause in the fighting. The US said it was a cynical use of a veto, and most other countries supported the resolution. 5 people are pleaded not guilty for spying for Russia in the UK. It's alleged they were part of a network of British-based Bulgarians conducting surveillance against people and places targeted by Russia.
Timely data so that we can track those broken links, and it's about working with our families, building a really strong relationship, so that we can really have a shared understanding that the actual impact that those broken links have on payments, but also their sense of belonging, feeling rooted in our community, having really strong friendships, relationships with their adults in schools as well, which encourages them to want to come to school. We've got to make sure that people want to come to school.
I mean, you can do all that you can to make school a good, fun, safe place to be, but you also need the contact with the parents. The parents have to make sure that the child gets to school. I mean, Daniel Moynihan, is there more stick or more carrot needed when it comes to getting parents on side?
We need a bit of both. So schools need to be welcoming places. Children need to want to come in. It's very difficult for parents if they've got a child that's fearful or reluctant to come to school. So, for example, our primary schools offer a free breakfast club on a Monday, because Mondays and Fridays are the days that parents often work from home. We want the children to want to come in. The clubs they offer after school are chosen by the youngsters rather than the ones the school says should happen, to make it a more interesting place. Our secondaries are spending extra money on education welfare officers and attendance officers in order to work with parents and find out what's needed to get their youngsters in and connect them up with mental health services. We're employing a team of mental health advisors, because there's sometimes, in some councils, a wait of up to 2 years before a youngster can receive help or treatment, and in that time they get worse. So there needs to be a lot of carrots, but there are also some feckless parents who are quite happy to have their youngsters at home because it suits them, because they're at home, because they want them to look after younger siblings, and that's not acceptable. And therefore schools also have the option of fines, We don't want to fine parents, we want to support them, but inevitably that happens in some cases. Of course, the problem is you've got middle class parents who want to go away on foreign holidays and do it in term time. Increasingly, it's a lot cheaper, and the fine doesn't discourage them. And then you've got parents at the other end who can't afford it. But nonetheless, there are some parents where that does make a difference once attempts to support have failed.
Okay, and just very briefly, Helen and Kane, Daniel was talking about attendance officers. Are they the same? Do they do the same thing as truancy officers? You know, knock on a door and you know, make sure the child is out of bed and is on its way to school?
So at the trust that I'm part of, we have got a dedicated attendance and inclusion list which supports all our schools to embed the policy. We have a tiered approach, but at the start of the tiered approach is about the support and understanding the individual barriers that particular family might have. And I think it's worth noting that sometimes these broad labels that we give to groups of young children, such as disadvantaged or children with SEND, kind of suggest that there might be a generic solution to something such as poor attendance. And I think it's really important to note that often the barriers are really individualised, and therefore we can't have tokenistic approaches. It has to be really focused on that particular child's barriers to attending school. Whether we would go around knocking on doors, that's certainly not something I'm aware of within our policy, but it's very much built around strong relationships. But I would absolutely echo what we said earlier about funding for real strong integrated health service support. We can't do it at all at a school level.
Yeah, you've both made that very clear. Thank you very much for your time. So Daniel Moynihan from Parents Federation. You also heard from Helen and Kane from Penzance. It is now 20 to 6, and we can turn our attention to Ukraine now. Millions of people have been left without power across Ukraine today after Russian missiles targeted energy infrastructure in a new phase of bombardment. Ukraine's energy minister, German Galushenko, has accused Russia of trying to provoke a large-scale failure of the country's energy system by targeting power plants and energy lines.
It is causing a problem for Russia's refining capacity. Prices have risen by about 15%. The Russians have extended a ban on exports of petroleum products for another 6 months in order to prevent the domestic price going too high. And undoubtedly, the Americans are saying privately to the Ukrainians, don't keep on doing this, because they worry it will affect world markets. They worry that it will provoke the Russians to retaliate by playing games with the pipelines that flow through Russia to the Western market.
Who has said, yes, this began as a special military operation, but now he's calling it a state of war. And what is the game plan here for Russia, and how significant is that still?
This is the way, after the election of Putin last week, with this new assertiveness that he feels, that the Russians are now saying, okay, with our new re-elected president, we are now going full tilt into war economy. And so we're going to recruit 500,000 more troops. We're going to put 100,000 or 150,000 of them into the battle this year. They'll be untrained, so they'll be pure cannon fodder, but that's what they will do. And we're gearing up industry to fight now a war for our national survival. It's a complete myth, but it's a myth that Putin now depends upon in order to maintain his power.
We were looking at a map today of troop movements and territorial gains, and it does certainly seem that line of control Russia has pushed, I mean, albeit just a little bit in certain areas along this line. Is this a prelude to a new big offensive from Russia?
The Russians can't mount a strategic offensive until the spring of 2025 because they simply won't have the equipment and they won't have trained troops ready to go. But they look as if they want to push all the way around the front as much as they can. They think that if they put the Ukrainians under pressure everywhere all at once, that Ukraine might crack. And they might be right. Because if the Ukrainians really are running out of ammunition as fast as they seem to be, then it doesn't matter how brave the troops are, if they run out of ammunition, they lose. And so this problem for Ukraine is how to hang on during the next 5 or 6 months. They're getting some help, there are all sorts of initiatives going on, but none of them are as important as the continuation of the American aid they were getting up to December last year.
I mean, you've studied the history of all of this more than most people. Can I ask you to look into your crystal ball and just look at the future? How will the next few months look for the rest of the world?
I think for the rest of the world, the next few months will be the critical months for questioning whether Ukraine survives or not in its present war. If it loses this war of liberation, where it's trying to liberate the territories of Russia and Sweden, then the war won't stop. It'll just become a war of resistance against whatever territories Russia has taken by the end of the year. And in that case, it'll be an even nastier war then than it is now. And the Western world will be faced with a very assertive, very triumphant Putin. And all the dictators in Africa will be standing back and watching this. They will make their own decisions that the West can't be trusted anymore, the West doesn't need anything that it says, and they'll adjust their policies to the new reality of a dominant Russia and a dominant China being able to influence what goes on in the rest of the world.
Professor Michael Clark from King's College London. We're just getting some reports in the last few minutes of a shooting at Crocus City Hall concert. It's a venue near Moscow. According to the RIA news agency, at least 3 people in camouflage opened fire and some were wounded. As I said, it's a developing story. There have been pictures on social media showing multiple casualties lying on the ground. There are also reports of a blast and a fire in the building. It is a developing story, and we will bring you more on this if we get it. The time is 5:48, and here's John with some of today's other headlines.
2 men have been arrested in connection with an explosion at the service station in County Donegal a few months ago. The UK's largest building society nationwide has apologised after an IT glitch left many customers unable to make payments to banks and other building societies. Malaysia says it's turned down an offer to host the 2026 Commonwealth Games because of the cost.
John, thank you very much. Now, are you the owner of a team? Is there a slightly peculiar whim about this relationship? Nasal assault, maybe every time you open a certain bedroom door in the house. You are not imagining this. Apparently, there is a scientific reason for this. Puberty makes teenagers' armpits smell of, wait for it, cheese, goat, and urine. There is some serious scientific evidence to underpin this from the Friedrich Alexander University in Germany. I've been speaking to one of its researchers, Helen Luce, and I asked her how she came to these findings.
First, we sampled the body odors by asking the participants to wear a cotton pad under their armpit for 1 night. And the body odors actually did not have very intense smell, but nonetheless we could detect with our method a range of carboxylic acids. So these acids have very different smells, for instance goat-like, but also other smells. And
okay, I mean, so goat-like, okay, I mean, I was looking at the list of odours that have been provided. No, that was one of the researchers from the Friedrich Alexander University, Helen Luce. Now, from smell to another sense, what does that sound? Can you identify this sound? To be fair, that is not easy, so let's try another instead. Do you know what it is yet? Well, it's the sound of starlings. It's a sound that residents of Redditch in Worcestershire have had to get used to, as thousands of birds have settled near the town's local shopping centre. Over the past few months, the skies of Redditch have been filled with really awe-inspiring patterns or murmurations of starlings in flight. I've been lucky enough to it's quite something. Wildlife photographers, nature enthusiasts have all been flocking, forgive the pun, to the area, but sadly, the murmuration season is now coming to a close and the starlings will move on. But where will they go? And what will they do? Let's speak to Dr. Viola Ross-Smith of the British Trust for Ornithology about this. Hello there. Hello. Hi, thanks very much for being with us. First of all, I think people haven't seen this. It is an extraordinary sight, isn't it? I've been lucky enough to see a murmuration. It's amazing.
Yes, it really is. You have thousands of birds flocking together. It's very most incredible shapes. It's just magical.
And why are they doing this?
Well, lots of different reasons. So they tend to be doing it just before they go to roost. So as they have the night fall, it's so dusky, the birds go to roost, they want to roost together. And as they're swirling around making shapes, it's a very good way of avoiding predation. So if we've got a passing peregrine falcon, for example, they can't focus on one individual bird when they're all linked together. They're also chattering all the time, so we can have exchange of information, and then when they go into the communal roost again, it's the same thing on this day, and also keeping their warmth for winter months.
Okay, I mean, it is sad that they're moving on, and I've heard that there's one sitting in a multi-storey car park in Redditch that's never seen so much action before. So it's great to see this.
It does vary a bit from year to year where they go, but yeah, they tend to do this more outside the breeding season in the winter, partly, like I say, for warmth reasons. Also in the winter, there's as well, there's country where birds that come in from places like other parts of Northern Europe, Baltic states, even parts of Russia, that sort of numbers are higher. But yeah, there are predictable spots where you see migrations, famous places like Whiting, for example, and near Leighton Moss in Lancashire. They come every year, but sometimes migrations do not in less expensive places like Redditch.
Yes, sort of sad for Redditch really that they've decided that they're going to move on. Where are they going to go next?
Well, now it's going to be the breeding season, so birds are going to be thinking about having chicks instead. Some of the birds have been passing back to their breeding grounds in other parts of Europe. Other birds will just be nesting here, but then they'll be focusing on finding nesting sites, rearing their chicks, and not doing this amazing behaviour in some way.
You said they've become a little less predictable, some of the places where they turn up, and is that to do with changes in climate or changes in temperature?
Not so much, I don't think. It's starlings have a habit of doing things like they nest in, they roost in reed beds, and so if they collapse a reed bed, because they're not able to roost and clear out, they have to move somewhere else. So that could be a passing pine tree or car park, for example. But there are changes to do with ecological changes in the environment, so their numbers are going down. We know starlings are one of the most conservation concerned redwoods in this country. Lost of sensible communities. So that has to do with things like loss of heat and other factors to climate changing.
Okay, that is tragic. So we were saying that they would be much larger, much more.
Yeah, which I think is part of the reason why people really notice the migrations in their habit. So we can really think don't see such big numbers of birds and many species in this country.
Now we only really have to do something, but what is the most startling starling display that you've ever seen? Where was it?
Actually, where I live in Woolfolk, some winters exactly have really good starling migrations, and they're just coming right down over the town. You can really hear them in Scotland, which is incredible. It's really amazing. It's such an amazing sight, and I do hope the cat will want to starlings so people can enjoy them in future generations.
Yeah, not wrong. It's extraordinary. Thank you very much indeed for your time. That's Dr. Viola Ross-Smith of the British Trust for Ornithology.
On BBC iPlayer,
This story that I'd never heard before.
real people, unbelievable stories, including another body.
Deepfake videos can make someone appear as though they're saying or doing something that they're not.
There is no woman in the world safe from this technology.
Young Utopia. There is no freedom of tradition, no freedom of thought, no freedom of press in North Korea. And revenge our dad, the Nazi killer.
They all believe Dad was responsible for taking out a Nazi fugitive living in Australia.
Storyville. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
Time now to get the weather forecast with Louise here. Hello, Louise. Hi there, Anita. Well, just a few days ago on Wednesday, we had a high of 19 degrees. It felt like spring was in the air, didn't it? But unfortunately, by tomorrow, we'll be lucky, many of us, to see a high of 9 degrees. So that's going to come as a shock to the system. It'll also feel much colder as well when you factor in the strength and the direction of the wind, a brisk northwesterly right across the country. Also, Saturday will be accompanied by a case of heavy, sharp showers, real wintry ones as well to higher ground. Anywhere above 400 metres is going to fall as snow. Elsewhere, the showers will be frequent in the north and west of Scotland and Northern Ireland to begin with, and then they'll push further south and east across the whole of England and Wales into the afternoon. Some of these showers will be heavy and thundering with some hail mixed in there, just for good measure. So drop temperatures generally on Saturday around 8 to 10 degrees, but because of the wind strength and direction, it's going to feel much colder. Now on Sunday, a glimpse of good news as a brief ridge of high pressure takes over for a time. There's still a risk of a few scattered showers along north facing coast, but on the whole, lighter winds, dry, sunny, a degree or so warmer. It can feel warmer because of the wind chill.
12 degrees, but as we head from Monday into next week, low pressure continues to dominate the weather story and it's going to stay pretty unsettled, with showers or longer spells of rain at times, but just that little bit after. Actual weather.
Louise, thank you very much indeed. Today's studio director was Ben Martin, the editor was Alicia Caro. 6 o'clock news is next on Radio 4. That is it from us at Pure.
BBC News at 6 o'clock. This is Jane Steele. Good evening. She said it had been an incredibly tough couple of months for her and her family, and that she was undergoing chemotherapy and getting stronger every day. Our first report tonight comes from our royal correspondent, Johnny Diamond.
From the Princess of Wales just moments ago, a video message.
I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you personally for all the wonderful messages of support and for your understanding whilst I've been recovering from surgery.
Sitting outside on what looks like a park bench in a garden, she is casually dressed. There are daffodils behind her as she speaks. She says it has been an incredibly tough couple of months for her family.
In January, I underwent major abdominal surgery in London, and at the time, it was thought that my condition was non-cancerous. The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present. My medical team therefore advised that I should undergo a course of preventative chemotherapy, and I'm now in the early stages of that treatment.
Kensington Palace, the office of the Prince and Princess, says that treatment began in late February. The palace will not reveal where she's being treated, nor give further details of her treatment. The palace had issued guidance saying that the princess's condition was non-cancerous. It was, it says, only after the operation in January that post-operative tests found that cancer had been present. The princess says that the news had come as a huge shock.
It has taken me time to recover from major surgery in order to start my treatment. But most importantly, it has taken us time to explain everything to George, Charlotte and Louis in a way that's appropriate for them and to reassure them that I'm going to be okay.
The princess's children are 10, 8 and 5 years old respectively. The palace describes Kate as being on a recovery pathway, having commenced a course of preventative chemotherapy. She says she is well and getting stronger every day. Twice she thanked those who have sent messages of support. It means so much, she says, to her and William. As for her work, she says it's always given her.
Chemotherapy is medication.
佢做手術，跟住本來切唔知乜鬼啦，唔知咩手術，跟住冇諗住係 cancer， 跟住之後佢揾到佢 cancer， 即係嗰啲仲麻椒。跟住而家第一即係初步嗰個嘅 treatment， 啱啱出咗 statement。咁我以為你都知道。你好得閒，我唔得閒。
Catherine's illness and her absence from the front line of royal duties is a huge blow for the royal family, already struggling to keep the show on the road with the King's cancer treatment restricting his availability, and also the absence of the Sussexes, Harry and Meghan, as well as, for very different reasons, Prince Andrew. The slipped-down royal family now looks dangerously stretched. Prince William will return to public duties when his children go back to school in the middle of April, but he will, of course, want to spend considerable time with his wife and to be around for George, Charlotte and Louis. Queen Camilla has repeatedly stepped in for her husband since King Charles' cancer diagnosis, but at 76 the palace will not want to increase her workload too much more. Other working royals are already at close to full throttle, and it seems inevitable that there will be significant pruning of planned royal visits and appointments. Kate, as the world knows her, has been the model of wholesome health and normality, acting as a vital dose of ordinariness in the House of Windsor. The Princess of Wales is also a global superstar, repeatedly voted one of the most influential women in the world. In Britain, she is the most popular of all the royals. The Kate effect is such that the dresses she wears will sell out within hours of the contest hitting Instagram. The UK monarchy will be weaker without Catherine around, and the institution's already weak from a king who's unwell and a family riven by scandal and quarrel. They will miss
miss her.
The Princess of Wales recorded her message at Windsor earlier this week. It was filmed with the help of BBC Studios, which is the production arm of the corporation. A statement from BBC Studios wished Her Royal Highness a speedy recovery. The statement, BBC News said, along with other media, was briefed by Kensington Palace in the announcement this afternoon. And all the latest reports and analysis on tonight's news about the Princess of Wales on BBC Sounds. There are further signs of a growing rift between Israel and its strongest ally, the United States, over the war in Gaza. The American Secretary of State held talks in Tel Aviv. Anthony Blinken and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hoped to secure a ceasefire in Gaza. Blinken urged him not to launch a planned ground offensive in the southern city of Rafah, where more than 1 million Palestinians are sheltering. Mr. Netanyahu insisted he would press ahead with the plans. State Department correspondent Tom Bateman is travelling with Mr. Blinken and sent this report.
On the tarmac in Tel Aviv, the welcome flags were out for Anthony Blinken. But like the hulking grey military plane he arrived in, the day was without much of the usual fuss or niceties. At the Ministry of Defence, he sat with the Israeli War Cabinet for talks with Benjamin Netanyahu. The US-Israel relationship is under severe stress, as Washington, which is Israel's biggest military backer, has been unable to ensure enough humanitarian aid is getting into Gaza. A UN-backed food security assessment has said a man-made famine in Gaza is imminent. After his meeting, Mr. Blinken spoke to those of us in the press travelling with him.
100% of the population of Gaza is acutely poor.
Blocked a draft resolution at the UN Security Council that calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The proposal was put forward by the United States after a change in policy from the White House. But Russia and China said it would give Israel the green light to launch a ground offensive in Rafah. From New York, here's Nebuchadnezzar.
The US draft has gone through several revisions in the past month and ultimately included language on the imperative of an immediate and sustained ceasefire. But the text did not explicitly call for one, tying it to the ongoing hostage deal negotiations. Russia's ambassador Vasilina Benzia called the US move a hypocritical spectacle with a false ceasefire call. He accused Washington of trying to deliberately mislead the international community. 11 countries voted in favor of the draft, but Russia and China exercised their vetoes. Algeria also voted against it, and Guyana abstained. The U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield told council members there were cynical reasons behind Russia and China's vote.
Russia, who has carried out an unprovoked war on its neighbor, has the audacity and the hypocrisy to throw stones when it lives in a glass house itself. So let's be honest, for all the fiery rhetoric, we all know that Russia and China are not doing anything diplomatically to advance a lasting peace.
Several council members support a rival draft resolution that will be voted on tomorrow, which demands an immediate ceasefire for the month of Ramadan, leading to a permanent sustainable truce and the release of all hostages. China challenged the U.S. to show it was serious about a ceasefire by supporting it. France said it would propose its own initiative aimed at a political settlement of the conflict.
Reports from Moscow suggest a number of people have been out. Even the air raid signs don't work in Kharkiv with no power. The living told to check their phones instead for alerts. But Dmitro tells me his city is resilient.
Blackouts in the city, no electricity, no water in houses. They try and scare us, but it doesn't work.
All this is happening as the bombardment across Ukraine's northeastern border intensifies. In the region of Sumy up there, elderly residents are being rescued by police. Some of them were carried out in blankets. Rozbywali Kharkiv Gmina tells me the airstrike smashed village houses. What do the Russians want, she asks. She says it was scary. At a temporary shelter, we found other evacuees, safe for now, but distraught. They've abandoned everything they own and all they know. Moscow calls all this retribution for Ukrainian attacks. No mention that Russia has been using Ukrainian infrastructure and killing civilians here ever since Vladimir Putin launched his full-scale invasion. You're listening to the 6 o'clock news on BBC Radio 4. The main news so far. The Princess of Wales was revealed that she'd been treated for cancer. Video statement described the news as a huge shock, since she was focused on making a full recovery. US has accused Russia and China of simply vetoing the Security Council's resolution for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Still to come, a 75-year-old grandmother in the world of online dating life story. The Football Association has defended the St George's Cross design of the England kit, saying it's not the first time different colours have been used. It said the purple and blue stripes were meant as a tribute to the 1966 World Cup winning team. The Mavericks criticised the shirt. Our sports correspondent Matthew Perez.
When England players saw the new kit they would be playing in for the first time, it was love at first sight.
I would wear it. Yeah. 10 out of 10. I think it's a 10 as well. Yeah, I think it's a 10 as well.
But the small, colourful cross on the back of the collar, apparently designed to inspire and unite, has had the opposite effect on social media and radio playmates.
This is the symbol of our heritage and our nation. You cannot start playing about with our history for cultural benefit.
I'm not an overly sort of nationalistic person, patriotic, to be honest. Personally, I think, the colours of the flag isn't something you just change.
I'm an ex-soldier, yeah, you don't mess about with our flag. Simple as that.
The manufacturer's Nike claim the purples and blues added to the cross are a playful update and a nod to the colours in the training kit worn by the 1966 World Cup winning team. But the Prime Minister isn't a fan.
Look, obviously I prefer the original, and my general view is that when it comes to our national flag, we should rest with them, because they're a source of pride, identity, who we are, and they're perfect as they are.
But some believe the row is as strong in a teacup. Here's former England player John Barnes.
I think the best conversation you can, where you're going to change the line, but that's what England is. And I remember when I was on television, and I was thinking, why are they changing the cross? Why are they changing the cross? And then I thought, we got the cross of the shirt. So for me, I think it's much more about nothing.
The cross didn't feature on England kits until the late 90s, and this isn't the first time the colours have changed. Most recently in 2012, the kit featured red, green, blue and purple crosses. England's men will wear the shirt for the first time tomorrow night at Wembley against Brazil. The FA says it understands what the flag means to fans, and that it will be displayed prominently at Wembley, as it always is.
West Yorkshire police are investigating racist comments allegedly made in 2019 by British Conservative donor Frank Hester about Britain's first female black MP, Diane Abbott. The force said it was examining whether a crime had been committed. Rishi Sunak said it isn't right for him to comment on the police investigation. Our political correspondent Helen Catt reports. Earlier this month, The Guardian reported remarks that it claimed Mr Hester, who was given £10 million to the Tories, had made at a meeting of his software company in 2019. The paper claimed that he had said that Ms Abbott made him want to hate all black women and that she should be shot. West Yorkshire Police said it was investigating what it described as racist comments which were allegedly made at a meeting in 2019. It said a complaint had first been made to the Met Police and had been passed to West Yorkshire because the meeting took place in Leeds. Asked about the investigation, Rishi Sunak said it wouldn't be right to comment on police matters. The Prime Minister has launched a Conservative campaign for the local elections in England in May during a visit to Derbyshire. Speaking in Hena, Rishi Sunak said that Tory councils delivered more and cost less than those run by other parties. He was joined by Ben Bradley, the leader of Nottinghamshire County Council, who is looking to become the first mayor of the East Midlands. Our political correspondent Ben Wright reports.
The Prime Minister turned up at a bus repair factory to crank the Tories' local election campaign into gear. He knows it is going to be tough. Most of the council seats up for grabs were last contested in 2021. A good year for the Conservatives. Now, miles behind Labour in opinion polls, Rishi Sunak has turned his fire on Sir Keir Starmer.
He is arrogantly taking the British people for granted, assuming that he can just stroll into number 10 without saying what he would do. Because we all know he can't tell you what he would do differently because he doesn't have a plan.
He said voters should look to councils, including Birmingham, to see what Labour would do if they win power. 8 councils, run by both Labour and the Conservatives, have declared effective bankruptcy in the last few years, with others warning they're on the financial brink. May's elections will determine who runs important local services in councils across England and Wales, but not the country. And opposition parties have accused the Prime Minister of bottling out of a general election on the same day. Although the talk of Tory plots and mutiny has died down at Westminster, this spring election is being seen as a potentially perilous moment for Mr. Sunak, who's hoping for science for political fuel.
Investors have approved a deal to turn Donald Trump's social media platform Truth Social into a publicly traded company. The merger could net the former president around $3 billion, equivalent of around £2.3 billion. However, it might not immediately solve Mr. Hampton's pressing financial issues, including a fine for fraud. Our correspondent in New York, Michelle Fleury, has more.
Truth Social, Donald Trump's social media company, markets itself as an alternative to Twitter and Facebook. Its merger with Digital World Acquisition Corporation could allow it to make its stock market debut as early as next week, under the ticker symbol DJT, Donald Trump's initials. On paper, the deal will make Donald Trump, the majority shareholder in Truth Social, some $3 billion richer, although he's likely to be barred from selling his shares for 6 months. The potential windfall comes as Donald Trump urgently needs to secure more cash to prevent the enforcement of court judgment in New York in order to avoid the seizure of his assets.
More now on that breaking news from Moscow, where a number of people are reported to have been shot dead at a concert hall. Our Russia editor Steve Rosenberg has the latest.
This evening, a number of gunmen burst into a concert hall in Moscow between 2 and 5 armed men and began shooting. We don't have any official casualty figures yet, but
I kind of see them, but I wonder if they're ever saying, Kiki, I forgot to tell you, I've got bad on you. I made a great team. Thanks, you love this team. And I knew I as well.
Let's go! And they won.
First game, first win.
Alright. And Grumpy Gran 1948 had a victory song.
Well, you can't shove your granny off a bus.
I will never.
You can't shove your granny off a bus.
Our main story again. In the past half hour, the Princess of Wales has revealed she's receiving treatment for cancer, saying the news came as a huge shock, but that she's focused on making a full recovery.
As you can imagine, this has taken time. It has taken me time to recover from major surgery in order to start my treatment. But most importantly, it has taken us time to explain everything to George, Charlotte and Louis in a way that's appropriate for them and to reassure them that I'm going to be okay. As I've said to them, I am well. I'm getting stronger every day by focusing on the things that will help me heal in my mind, body and spirits.
Rishi Sunak said Catherine had the love and support of the whole country and praised what he called her tremendous bravery. The Labour leader, Keir Starmer, sent his very best wishes to the Princess of Wales, saying he was heartened by her optimistic tone and message of faith and hope. The White House said its thoughts were with her and wished her a full recovery. Our other main news story tonight, a number of people are reported to have been killed in a shooting at a concert hall near Moscow. Russian news agencies said at least 3 people dressed in camouflage were fired at the venue. BBC News.
The news this evening was read by Jane Steele. This is BBC Radio 4. Lucy Porser is one of the guests on the Now Show this evening, our 6:30 comedy. It's after a look ahead to Tuesday.
40 years ago, the Terminator began a Hollywood dynasty and made Arnold Schwarzenegger a superstar.
The idea originally, I think, was that the Terminator was undetectable. You wouldn't notice it. Of course you'd notice Arnold Schwarzenegger and his pride walking down the street.
But it also did something else.
I think it's a cautionary tale, like most science fiction.
I'm Beth Ziegler, a cultural and digital anthropologist, and for Radio 4, I'm looking at how this film imagines the dangers of artificial intelligence.
We're now catching up with what Cameron was portraying in the Cyborg.
I'll be back. 40 years of the Terminator on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds. Next Tuesday morning at 11:30.
Hello, I'm Steve Hunt and I'm Hugh Dallett. With us are Lucy Porter, Alistair Becky King, Ed Jones, Katie Norris and Mitch Penn. And this is... The Now Show! Thank you very much. So, for the second week running, we begin by pointing out that we know there's an election coming, but we don't know when, and the whole country is treading water until we do. You see, they could be trying to pick a date where the nation might feel good, like during the Euros or straight after Eurovision. or during the Olympics. Next for the high jump, Rishi Sunak. Some areas, councils are trying to get climate protesters to lie down in the potholes to fill them temporarily, while others are filling all the cans that have been kicked down the road over the years. The potholes are interesting politically because they reflect all sides. The left say they are a menace to cyclists and are caused by privatised utility companies constantly digging the roads up. The right say, well, they're getting worse because electric cars are twice as heavy as petrol cars. And the Lib Dems aren't happy about potholes either because sitting in the middle of the road annoying everyone is their Whatever your politics, the other big cause of potholes is the effects of extreme weather. Tarmac melts in the summer and then freezes and cracks in winter, reflecting increasing climate change, which means that potholes officially can be classified as a symptom of the end of the world.
Horsemen, our time has come. Together, the four of us shall herald the apocalypse. Let's check everyone's here. One, I am here. Samuel? Yes? That's me. I'm here. So that only leaves our fourth and final member, Porthos.
But is this really a new problem? I mean, thanks to a newspaper headline quoted by the Beatles, we know that there were 4,000 holes in Blackburn, Lancashire, even in 1967. And Lancashire, believe it or not, is still the second worst county for potholes. But I'm not sure it would be newspapers they'd be quoting nowadays.
So TV news today, oh boy.
The only real solution to it depends on one man, Banksy. All he needs to do is declare that for years he's been secretly making all the potholes himself, and then suddenly they'll be worth enough to dig them up, sell them all off, and use the proceeds to resurface the roads properly. Incidentally, since 2020, the government have been giving councils £500 million a year to deal with potholes. One person who could use £500 million at the moment is Donald Trump, who needs that much to pay for an appeal bond for his New York fraud case. Now, interest payments mean that the amount Trump owes is currently increasing by about £80,000 a day, a situation familiar to anyone who took out a student loan after 2012. These kind of bonds are commonplace, and they're usually fairly easy to find. Trump's problem, though, is that no insurance company will lend him the money.
Hello, Direct Line.
Hello, this is your once and future president.
Are you looking for car or home insurance?
Neither. I would like insurance against criminal charges in New York, fabricated deep state criminal charges, by the way.
We don't do that kind of insurance.
Okay, who else can I try?
You could ask the Meerkat.
Are they Russian?
Yeah.
Good, I can do business with them.
So, here to talk about high-profile celebrity retirement, Lucy Porter.
This week it was announced that Dame Laura Kenny would be retiring. Now, Dame Laura is of course the UK's Queen of the Olympics, a cyclist who holds 5 Olympic golds, 7 World Championship titles, and was the first British woman to win a gold medal at 3 consecutive Olympics. And she was born in 1992. Which I just cannot get my head around by the calculations of my internal crime perception monitor. Someone born in 90 guilt and anxiety over juggling children and work. But we can't talk about that without feeling ashamed or worrying that you sound self-pity. As Laura herself said, everyone paints a pretty picture, but we are not robots. And to prove it, she then went on to correctly identify 6 pictures of traffic lights. Retirement can be daunting at any age, and I'd imagine especially so for someone who's not even old enough to remember the classic era of Doctor Who, or that time when Bucks won Eurovision. Obviously at 31, she's unlikely to have the kind of retirement I'm looking forward to, largely based around caravanning, garden centres and hardcore S&M. Me and Liz Truss.
A 2-second kiss between Shrek and Fiona is basically the bathroom scene from Saltburn. Plus, children do get confused by explicit scenes on a big screen because they're used to seeing them on phones.
Yes, exactly. Now, the BBFC quoted one respondent to the survey who wanted sex scenes banned from 12As entirely. At the moment, the rules say that for films with a 12 or 12A rating, sexual activity must be
discreet and brief. In other words, like real life.
In a 15-rated film, sexual nudity is allowed, but
strong detail is likely to be presented in a comic context. Again. Like real life. You never know what's going to offend people nowadays. They even have to warn about mild sexual references in the Paddington films.
Why are you called Paddington?
Said Mrs. Brown. Paddington looked thoughtful and said, because I like the seedy hotels and general ambience around big railway stations.
I see,
said Mrs. Brown.
and why do you always carry marmalade?
Said Paddington. Now that is a bit embarrassing.
Interestingly, although today's audiences are much more worried about sexual references, they are much less worried about depictions of cannabis smoking.
Who else would you be talking to, a bear?
Said Paddington. Now, sometimes changing things is not as easy as you think. So this week we learned that secondary schools in England are turning to PE teachers to plug gaps in maths. That's because last year the government missed its target number of maths trainees and only 63%.
How did they manage that?
They divided the number of trainees by 100 and multiplied by 63, but that's not the point. The point is they're using PE teachers to teach maths. I mean, surely there are concerns.
Sir, I forgot my protractor.
Right, you'll be doing by beggaress in your pants.
Change is also happening for what's left of our high streets. M&S are moving more of their clothes and homeware online and making more stores food only, which from a brand perspective does make sense. You want to represent quality in a clearly defined area of the market, not several apparently random things mashed together.
This is not just food. This is M&S food. And also knickers. Huge, enormous knickers. Knickers so big, proportionately, any bum looks small. M&S, come with the ready meals, stay for the Bridget Jones coffee.
Supermarkets are also changing the way we pay. Many of them are giving up on self-service tills because they have led to a spate of shoplifting, and also because people like to have a human being to talk to. So surely the answer is to use AI to create a self-service till, but with a more human feel.
Please scan your first item. How you doing? All right?
Sorry, what?
Can't believe I've still got another hour till my lunch break. Still,
ability to withstand cold temperatures. You might know him by his other name,
the Iceman.
which is a nickname he so obviously gave himself. You're not allowed to come up with your own nickname. That's why we don't stand for people saying,
I'm crazy, Becky.
no one calls you that, Becky. We call you Sad Becky. Now, I don't know why people are so impressed by Wim Hof's ability to withstand cold temperatures. Penguins can do that. Nobody thinks penguins are tough because they look like someone put a cat in a condom. Yeah, everyone loves penguins. No one wants to see a penguin being named. But this week, scientists at the University of Warwick suggested that there may be some health benefits to the Wim Hof method exercise regime. Now, I'm not a scientist, but I can't help being a little skeptical of Mr. Hof. If you look him up on Wikipedia, there's a paragraph on the Wim Hof method, and the section underneath is titled Method-Related Deaths. You see, it turns out ice water is actually very cold. It's quite bad for you. Whether it works or not, I don't think the Wim Hof method is for me. You see, I already know what it's like to plunge into a barrel full of ice water because I performed stand-up comedy in Aberdeen. Don't get me wrong, Aberdonians have a fine sense of humour, but they laugh when they want, not when you want. I respect that. It's the only time I've seen a compere say,
You're in for a fantastic night.
and the entire audience reply, we'll see about that. Whatever you think of Wim Hof and his brothers Winkle and Bank, whatever you think of the brothers Hof skipping across the North Pole in their flip-flops and speedos, we have to do something about our nation's health. Apparently,
children are now shorter on average than they were in 2010. In fact, kids are getting shorter and fatter, which is good news because it means the overall volume of children is staying constant. I'm hardly little Johnny Sport myself. I should be worried about my own health. And I know that because of the targeted adverts I get online. They are trying very hard to scare me. But, like most Radio 4 listeners, the internet doesn't really know who I am. So the targeted ads I get could not be less relevant. I got one which said,
Hey Alistair, is it time to freeze your eggs?
Which is nuts because I'm a vegan. The last ad I saw was an American giving diet advice, and the advice was, don't eat any food your grandparents wouldn't recommend. The beanbags, but it moves on the stools, deck chairs, sofas, spinny roundy office chairs, those comfy chairs with a spring-loaded bit for your feet. Oh, twang me into comfort, mister. I'm reclining on a cozy dragon. I used to love a love seat. I used to squat on an ottoman. Next thing you know, you buy the toe back at 3 a.m. trying to buy a tapestry upholstered Louis XIV armchair with sea-stalled elbow rests. Baby, can you check out this pair of water-damaged Chesterfield? No, leave me alone! Wing back there to wing back here. No, please! Chaise long for the gentleman, exquisite chaise long. Leave me alone, damn you, I choose life! Come on, I'm going. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to have a sit down. Thank you. So, as we mentioned earlier, supermarkets are getting rid of self-service tills because they've made it far too easy for people to shoplift. So, we've asked our audience this week whether they have ever stolen anything, either deliberately or inadvertently.
You ever done anything? Yes, soap from hotels on business trips. I haven't had to buy a cake of soap since 1988.
Have you ever stolen anything deliberately? Yes, a brick. What happened? The building collapsed.
Have you ever stolen anything deliberately or inadvertently? Yes, a shit glass ornament from Woolworths. I'm still living with the guilt after 60 years. And the shit glass ornament.
So, thank you, Torres, for confessing their sins to us there.
And now, to sing us out, would you please welcome back a giant of the Now Show, Mitch Benn.
I was surprised and delighted to be asked back to do the Now Show one last time. Delighted because, of course, I always had a great time doing the show. It was always great fun. I was looking forward to it. And surprised because, honestly, I had no idea it'd still been on the whole time. I was under the impression they wrapped this up 8 years ago. That's what they told me. Scams.
To everything there comes an end, and this is where we are, my friend. No use in trying to pretend. It's sad, I know, but please don't grieve. There's nothing worse, I believe, than when everybody's wishing you would leave. So it's time to say goodbye, and everybody knows the reason why. I'm afraid that you might stay to welcome. Time to say goodbye. Your capital is over, it's spent. Now all you haven't spent, and you're pulling at 18%. And now you're running out of things to hate. Just sling your hook on hesitate. Of course you jump at TV news awaits. So it's time to say goodbye, and everybody knows the reason why. I'm afraid that you've not stayed your welcome. Keep a punch inside. You're hopelessly complacent and corrupt. There's not a thing in life that you haven't screwed up. You think Bob General's gonna save you? Are you high? It's time to say goodbye.
You've been listening to the Now Show, starring Archie Dennis, Lucy Porter,
and Katie Harris. The song was written and performed by Mick Fenn. The show was written by the cast with additional material from Cody Gala, Zoe Tomlin, Katie Sayer, and Peter Luch. The producer was Sasha Bodak, and it was a BBC Studios production for Radio 4. There's more comedy on our sister station Radio 4 Extra. In a minute or two, Giles Brandreth will be hosting a quiz show from 2005 on BBC Radio 4 Extra. Oh, moon, lovely moon with a beautiful face. Careering throughout the boundless space, across the night of the full moon.
I looked up at the sky and saw a huge egg-white moon.
Join me, Dr. Kevin Fogg, as I travel through the BBC archive and explore our fascination with the moon.
喂，
I'm here trying to get
快了，还有10秒钟。
begins this Sunday night at
好，
10,
拜拜。
and then through the night on Radio 4 Extra and BBC Sounds.
Oh no, I think it's not one of that shoe. No, I know, that's not what I'm talking about. Sorry, it's so loud. Look, when is the timer? And I'll be finished in an hour or so. Come over to Rick Yard then. Yeah. It's gorgeous.
Well, it's not quite the house of Helen Farm.
No, but it's charming. When did you say it was built?
It was late 1700s. It's almost as old and creaky as I am.
What nonsense. If any don't look old and creepy, you're dead.
Can I get a drink? I wasn't sure if you wanted to stay here for a while or if you'd rather head straight to the ball.
Grey Gables isn't far, is it?
No.
Well, I'll stay here then. No rush.
Well, what can I offer you? I don't have an enormously extensive selection. Unless your flat has got whiskey berries.
Single malt? Absolutely.
Really? Well, I have one fruity 18-year-old space I quite enjoy.
Is Kate not around?
No, she's spending the night with her boyfriend.
Made certain she was out of the way, did you?
No. Well, yes, but I wasn't making a school. I compelled.
Oh, let's make it a bit easier. The bedroom is this way.
Around here.
Hello, Justin.
Oh, well, this is a surprise. Well, I insisted on you bringing someone with you, Brian.
I know, but unfortunately Alison Pitt didn't come.
And Liam, my word. You don't look a day older than the last time I saw you. Thank you. When was that? I think I must have come over to the Dower House.
Yes, that's right. You're picking up a pair of trousers you left behind.
Yes, and you wrapped in Testament.
Unfortuitous.
Yes, very.
And where's Dean this evening? You haven't left him in his pocket? Who's Dean?
He's her guard, landscape designer. We were briefly entangled.
Oh, but no more. I am so sorry. What happened? Did you find him digging in another customer's beds?
I've no idea what he was doing in other people's beds. I just know I was very satisfied with what he did in mine.
Right.
Yes, that ought to circulate. Of course, it's Justin's party. He is the bass player.
Let's get you another drink. Yes, all right. I do hope you'll bid generously in the charity auction, Miranda. That is the reason we're here.
Oh, don't you worry. I'm quite used to needing my checkbook when you're around. I suppose we really ought to go up and get dressed. It's now past Rosie's bedtime. 10 minutes. It's the start of school. She'll be fine with. Well, if you refuse to let me out of bed, I haven't got any choice, have I? No.
Listen, about Rosie. I mean, you know that I think she's brilliant kid. She's bright, she's loving, and she's got so much energy.
Tell me about it.
Running non-stop. You're so good for her though. I can't tell you how happy it makes me. See how the two of you are together. Seems like a perfect show, though.
I know. You really get into it with her.
Yeah, of
maybe that's one of the reasons she likes you. You play with her the same way Toby does.
Pip. Of course, I want to play an active role in Rose's life.
Yeah, I know. And that's why it's so wonderful. I'm part of Rose's life too.
Yeah. We ought to pick her up. Come on, let's get moving. You can say goodnight now.
Oh, you're staying, aren't you?
Yes, sure, of course.
Enjoy it. I didn't take you for a stranger to Alice.
Oh, no. You see how everyone's rules in Erebor.
I know. He's hilarious. We're the talk of the ball.
Sorry to interrupt.
Justin, how's the circulating room? Wonderfully, would it be possible to have a private word with Brian? Just as part of business.
Well, I'm not sure.
No, that's fine. You must have things you need to talk about. Maybe I'll go see you.
Yes, all right. Well, what is it?
What are you doing, Brian?
Doing? What are you talking about?
With Miranda. We both know why she's here, and it's not because of you.
Thanks very much.
No, I don't mean that clear. I'm saying it to you as a friend.
Right.
Look, this may seem like a jolly joke, but when that woman gets her claws in, he says it's a joke. Miranda and I have been getting on very well.
Oh, extremely well, in fact.
And how do you think Jennifer would feel about it? She wasn't a fool. She always had Miranda's number. She dared bring her for this. As if I don't know exactly how she feels. All right. I shouldn't have said that. That's not Miranda. She's here because I want her to be.
It's got nothing to do with you.
Oh, so you've been to Blossom Hill then? Only for a quick drink?
Did Brian mention it was our mother's house when he and Jenny started talking? It holds a lot of cherished memories for him.
Oh, he didn't. He has talked a lot about Jennifer, though.
I see. Well, then you know you're still recovering from her loss.
Oh, Miranda, here you are.
Business finished already?
Well, it turned out there wasn't much to discuss.
Oh, really? No. So, what are you talking about? Brian's cottage. It's so delightful. It's so cozy. You weren't too disappointed, then? Disappointed? That he hasn't got the big house anymore. Just what exactly?
Requires only men allowed and only boys allowed. He's also director of music at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama. Welcome the one-man musical army, Tim Rhys-Evans.
That's why Mrs. Evans.
You're at our piano today. Yeah. Do you have a go-to tune?
Oh my God, man. I'm reading in it, but I guess maybe something from our own Welsh tradition, maybe something a bit about Avlanamor.
It's so lovely to have you here. And you, Eliza. Thank you both for coming. Before we begin, just a reminder of how we roll. The aim is to build a wild and wonderful playlist of 5 songs, which we then listen to closely to try and figure out what's happening and why they make us respond the way they do. The challenge is, it's not a purely random selection. Each song needs to have a connection to the one before. We start each episode where we left off last time. That was a chock-a-block full of mega hits one last week, and we ended at this hotel. That was my pick, which means it's you to select, Jeffrey, what it's going to be and what the connection back to you is.
Ah, what a track. In Hotel California, we lingered on this glorious duo of guitars, playing into the horizon in that infamous 2-minute-plus solo. How the combination of two light instruments can soar, egging each other on in a great kind of competition. This totally rich scene in music. So let's stay in this area just a little bit longer. Not with twin guitars this time, but with twin voices. My pick for this episode's opener is an example of the power of 2 operatic sopranos playing with and of each other. Part of the duet, Ach, ich darf nicht hin zu dir. I cannot come to you. How's my German? From Act 1. From Act 1 of Austrian composer Johann Strauss, the youngest operetta in Fledermaus, first performed in 1874. Keris.
I'm just really glad because I thought we were going to introduce the sour duet that I mean, I couldn't believe that when you hear when you stand on a plane. So it's really lovely to land on a different duet. We're talking about Fledermaus, an operetta by composer Johann Strauss, the younger, also known as the Bat, which premiered in Vienna April 5th, 1874.
It's an amazing piece of writing. I think it's always really interesting when composers choose to just have the same voice type singing with one another. The way they can take over from each other's lines, and it speaks so much of what they're trying to say, which is what any great opera needs, put that emotion into music.
Elijah, do you identify with this wonderful program where you can play often with somebody else, most in the lead line?
Absolutely, and I love people in the same kind of range as well. Because, most of the singers in my family were female when I was growing up, aside from your dad and your uncle. When I was growing up on the farm with my mum and my auntie and my cousin Mary and my cousin Rachel, it was lots and lots of female voices singing together, all in different ranges. One of the things that I like about that is the fact that they can completely switch with each other, not just in terms of the melodies, but also the counterpoints and the rhythms as well. So you've got one soaring at the top while the other one sings a little off-beat thing, and then they'll swap around, and I just absolutely love that. It's almost as if allowing the other to be the accompaniment of each other, one of them to absorb, and then you couldn't have one without the other. That's glorious.
And when you've got great singers that are really listening to one another, they match every frequency in the signal. Sometimes it's imperceptible where the one is thinking from the other.
It's a very short piece.
Yes.
We're discussing. It opens with strings ascending, then one voice, some oboe, the second voice, high, then the voices begin their dance.
One of the main characters, Falca, who dresses up as a bat to go to pass one of his master worlds. So a Fledermaus is the flying mouse.
This piece is from early in the first act, so Rosalind refuses to let the chambermaid Adele go to the fancy dress ball because her husband Gabriel is about to go to jail. The two voices either are Rosalind and Adele, both the families.
And then from there it all goes a bit hidden identity and misunderstandings, right?
It's kind of Shakespearean in a way, isn't it? There's a lot of, not necessarily cross-dressing, but dressing up as other people and mistaken identities and all that kind of stuff.
It's kind of a riot book.
It's a comedy then?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, really silly and light and pretty. And at a time when there was so much instability in Europe and in Austria politically, there was this need, I think, just to have fun. So, Johann Strauss the Younger eventually wrote Le Damuse, and all of those waltzes the dance to just enjoy.
Is this a waltz music?
Yeah.
You play it?
So we've got that just about 1, 2, 3, 1 more turn. That feeling of one. Also known as Johann Strauss Jr., or the Younger, or the Son, composer and violinist born in St. Ulrich near Vienna in 1825, died in 1899, known for his operettas and dance music, which include waltzes, polkas, quadrilles. Huge star in his lifetime. Fun fact, during a tour in America, demand for authentic Strauss hair, you don't need, led to clippings of his dog's hair being given to adoring fans. But they worried that the dog would soon become bald because he was that popular. So I don't know how that story ends, but that's happened to become a superstar.
We're going to need a bigger dog.
St. Geoffrey Abbey that leads into a pier from Johann Strauss's opera Fledermaus to that opening track. So Eliza, up to next, where are you going to take us from the bat? And what, the thing? It's like a bat out of hell.
I like a bat out of hell. We're going to Genoa. It's recorded in the 1950s by the American ethnomusicologist and collector Alan Lomax. Called Rat Pack 10.
What's the link between it? What's the journey to?
Well, it was partly political. There's a lot of comedy possibly, but also some people breaking up with each other and lots of parties and reunions in Fledermaus. But it's also in the piece of music that we heard earlier, within the two people singing, although what we're about to hear, the form of what we're about to hear, is a choral form. So it is voices competing against each other and complementing each other as well. And so what you have within this tradition, which is called Trallallero, is a melody over the top, and then essentially somebody pretending to be a guitar underneath. So you have a buzzing low rhythm, and then a set of harmonic melodies in the middle, and then a tenor over the top.
States, I was amazed at this in Genoa, and there's no urgency. The other thing that just blew me away is the knowledge the lead singer there, the male vocalist, so he's just this incredible falsetto sound, but with so much resonance and twang in it.
It's not pleasant.
No, but it's incredible. It's insane and intense. Yeah.
Beautiful.
When you've got these people really close together like this, there's so much potential for these incredible harmonics to come out. And then when you have these incredible singers who are playing with the harmonic potential of it, what you're not just seeing in a classical or traditional choral style, there's anything that really speaks of them. I was blown away by it. I've never heard it.
Where is this sound primarily, this style of singing? Where would you find
Alan Lomax thought that it was purely longshore. All I can think of when I think of that is, where were they doing it? They're clearly imitating a whole band. They're trying to be a band, right? You've got your guitarist, you've got the guy singing up high, who I believe is trying to be a violin, and then you've got the people underneath who are trying to be the sort of different bits of the chords and all of that. And I just keep thinking, where do they do it? Do they do it in a big warehouse, or are they doing it in the bowels of a ship somewhere, or is it, like you say, is it party music? Are they doing it in a cafe?
Well, I did a little tiny bit of research. This wonderful article, go get lost in it, it's brilliant, Global World online. And they're singing it in a bar. So at 1 minute they're all just chatting with a little, it's to do with a lot of high voices and kind of what sounds like arguments, but it's obviously not. And then suddenly they just start singing like this in a circle. So you have these squadrons. And it can be from 6 or 9 up to 20 singers, mostly male, but they just start singing, and it is kind of communal, isn't it, in the sense that it's so informal and out of informality, it's majestic sound.
Well, I could hear almost every continent in this, if that does sound too strange.
It's genuine.
I know, well, yeah, it's like you can almost close your eyes and take you to Celtic sounding or something South American, maybe Latin. Right,
it's sailors music, which does include everything. I'm very fond of saying sea shanties are the first world music, because on a boat you have from everywhere, and always that's the case behind years. Everybody's squished together on a boat. Everybody has their own music, and what you end up with is essentially world music. You know what it was called that?
To me, you identify this idea of male versus female.
Absolutely, it just speaks to so many cultures where there's no money, there's people who work together for the days of entertainment, like or whatever, they have to find some way of expressing themselves, and obviously it reminds me of the Welsh male voice, and I've seen that video, and these men going out to this cafe to sing together. It could be the Welsh Women's Club there, and it's a male choir singing for the farmers in Africa, or songs that came out of slavery. It's just need to be something more than work themselves, and it always amazed me that, particularly with women of a certain age, you might find it difficult to tell told their children that they loved them, but they would stand up in public and sing about that and sing about their faith. And I just find it impossibly moving.
One of the things that I love about the form itself that relates to a lot of Northern European traditions is the way that the melodies and the rhythms start out expressed very, very simply and then get softened by your introduction. So that kind of declares, here we are, kind of thing, and then it goes very, very slowly until all of a sudden you're going these long lines, these long sort of expressed notes where everyone gets to really get their lungs in, and everyone takes a deep breath, and then all of a sudden you're in these sort of like semi-quavers, and you're getting your eyes blown off.
Still can't fathom that voice is in your voice.
I know.
Incredible stuff. Thank you so much, Eliza. Track 2 today is La Pantendra by the Chalaleri singers of Genoa. Oh, say Chalaleri. It's so brilliant.
Keris, it's your turn now. Let's part from La Partenza, crash, into new waters. Where are we going for our third track? And
I love it. You're like Angela in the recorder there, Eliza. It's what's happening with those notes. It's weird, isn't it?
I like it. It's amazing. Just that other diva track you played there. I think we have so much to answer for. Bach came along and added all of these rules, and before that, I love Bach, but before that, composers were doing really amazing, wild and weird things, and yeah, it's great to know that this all those
公公點啊？
that was a 20th century piece of music.
哦，佢冇食嘢啊？
We are listening to the opening
咁得唔得㗎
by
佢？
the 16th century Italian composer Giorgio
即係叻咗好耐喎。
Jeffrey.
得唔得㗎佢？
instantly arrested by that flute recorder sound. To me, it was
啊細 B 點啊？個奶樽喺個 playpen 嗰度喎，我排咗去急咗。哦，佢有冇飲到最尾？佢有冇再飲啊？最尾？有啊？哦，佢自己攞嚟飲啊？OK， 好。啊，咁好啦，咁咧繼續啦。拜拜。
It's called Il Gaillard, a dance popular all over Europe in the 16th century. It even appears in dance manual. I did a little bit of checking. Would you like to show how it goes?
Oh my goodness, here we go.
We stand up.
Keris is now on her feet, okay.
There's a sequence of steps.
Alright, let's up go. What are we doing?
Are we all doing it?
Stand up.
Right, here we go.
Okay, so stand up. Right, you've got your tights on and you've got presentations. So you move your right foot forward, then your left, then your right, then your left, then you jump. Onto another foot.
Nice.
Your third foot, no. Onto another foot. And then you start again from the other side. So it's left foot, right foot, left foot, right, and then that cadence again. Let's go. Nice.
Hey, that's good, that is.
Let's go. Play the music again.
Okay, let's do it.
Right. It's a very serious show, guys.
Jump. We can do the jump.
Do you know what's tricky? Are we doing it on time, half time, double time? I'm not sure. I'm not really an expert in Gaillard dance, 16th century. You know what? I think it's time to reach out to a specialist. And I'm so happy that we're up close to Henry Bardell, who works in a number of early and contemporary ensembles across the UK, joining us today to answer some of our questions. Heidi, are you there?
I am.
Did you witness any of that?
I did. It was wonderful. The music at this time, the instrumental music at this time, was really exciting. So we're coming out of this era of everything being about the voice, and the voice voice is still really, really prominent, and lots of instrumental music is all about using the voice and using syllables with the voice. But we have lots of really exciting instruments like shawms and sackbuts.
Shawms. Start with the shawms. Describe.
Shawms are sort of early type oboes. Sackbuts are sort of brass instruments, like early type trombone type instruments. Pipes you have the medieval Renaissance system, like bagpipes, smaller bagpipes. Crumb horns, which are crumb horn pink, so I don't play
The names are glorious.
incredible. This is a crumb horn.
Okay, that looks like a bamboo.
Yeah.
Very big bamboo. Could you play it? What's it called? There's crumbutt.
Crumb horn.
You merge the sackbuts and the crumb horn.
The crumb butt, I want to hear the crumb butt.
It sounds like an 80s synthesizer. Oh, what were those things that you used to stylophone? Sounds like a bit stylophone.
Have you got any other examples of such treasures around the United States?
So obviously this piece is played on a recorder. The recorders were hugely popular at this time. I have lots of different recorders here. This instrument is the one that is based on the one that everybody knows at school as a Baroque recorder. So the Baroques were, this is about 1700s around then.
Because what's really fascinating to my ears is this sliding that is playing around with those notes. Or they are, or she is. I'm not sure who's playing the recorder.
You would take a simple tune, simple melody, and it would be highly ornamented, highly decorated. And there were lots of people who wrote manuals to tell players how to do this. I don't know whether they are sliding. I think they're just playing very, 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 very quickly. So it almost sounds like sliding. It's almost like a...
There's kind of note bending going on. Let's have another listen.
So you're hearing these little sort of twiddles with almost like the precursors of the Baroque trill. You could have sliding. All I'm doing is sliding my fingers, so they could also be.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And how difficult is it to play, especially when it gets that section? I mean, it just sounds extraordinary.
Hard. Yeah, that would be. You would practice that significantly. You were going to performing or recording it still.
Heidi, thank you so much for bringing your recorder and talking us through this. And good luck with everything.
Oh, you're very welcome. Take care.
This is our playlist on BBC Radio 4.
And me, Jeffrey White. Our guests today are Eliza Carby and Tim Reese Evans. Let's recap this, Terrace.
Artistas Mixed Zodiac from the playlist Nacional, La Patenza, produced by Chanel of Genoa, and Gagliarda by Giorgio Ranieri. Which means actually it's time for you to start moving this up, Tim. Where would you like to take us from this nugget of curiosity and how to get in?
This is so hard. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Just because when there's these amazing world of musicians, I want to go there, I want to go there. Hard to do. I go to some avant-garde music, taking up from that, but I was really fascinated by the level of ornamentation and improvisation of that recorder player there, and it got me thinking of one of the great improvisers. And I went to Ella Fitzgerald, and I went to Ella Live in Berlin, which is an amazing album from 1960s, and just hearing what this woman does with her voice, the instrumental accuracy that she has, this incredible intonation, but also the way that in the track I've chosen, she, much like that Gaillard, she starts vocables.
This is in Mac the Night.
In Mac the Night. And the crowd are vibing with it.
Oh, what's next chorus to this song now?
Interesting though, because
very mechanized in Berlin, you know, Brecht and Kurt Weill and all of that, for doing it in the South, which were much more political. Yeah.
And in 1960, again, a pivotal moment in history as well, lots happening at this point. We've just talked through the first section.
So we're swinging before, and then she just goes straight into double tempo. You get this fantastic drum fill, and then straight away into double tempo, and she's off. Give the people what they want, give the people what they paid for.
We're singing it because you asked for it. Talk about vocalizing and about music. Holy moly. It's got on, right?
My mum used to do that when she died, when my mum was performing. If she forgot words, she would sing and they would love it. She'd be singing about the moon one minute and then like cheese, radiators, God knows. And they would just sit there going, yeah, it's great.
There's a confidence that puts you at ease, but at the same time, it's so audacious.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just going to sing what I want to sing, and that's it.
So relaxed as well, even though she's at this incredible speed.
Yeah, so relaxed, always active, never missing, never a fraction of if it was a metronome, and if she would be on it, it's astonishing, it's a masterclass. But also, the beauty of the sound, that she manages to create these honeyed tones. It's got this sweet mellifluousness and a musicality that's unreal. For a woman in 1960 to be leading a black woman leading a band like this, just to own it and to play and to be that confident in her own skin.
It's a massive power place, isn't it?
Yeah.
She's incredibly powerful.
Ella Jane Fitzgerald, born Virginia, USA, 17. She died in 1996. And about the song, How High the Moon, a jazz standard with lyrics by Nancy Hamilton and music by Morgan Lewis, dating back to 1940.
I like the video. She's on a top B flat and she ends on this chromatic scale. This top B flat, unashamedly. Yeah,
Tim, thank you. When I say How High the Moon by Ella Fitzgerald is our fourth track today. So, ramping up Jeffrey, where are we off now?
Alright, who am I to end the party? Listen, Ella's Jazz Scatting Masterclass is announced by that body government who talked about him right before everything knocks us up here. He actually took me to a genre of music that's all about upping the tempo to create a party that plays the crowd, just like Ella did. My pick to follow How High also features a fair amount of scatting, talks about how to get that swing, and at one point there's repeated single words to keep the party going, just like when Ella sings high, 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 high. Enough proof of me. Get ready to wind up your waist and spend some money with this carnival classic. Dollar Wine by Colin Lucas from 1991. Reactions from you guys started playing it. What happened there? Yeah, we're right there.
Where down? What chord, eh?
So we got G, then C, then B. Okay. Back to sea, and back to you.
Forward, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Because actually, forgive me, I think that every single right was done considered.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it tells a story, but essentially there is a dance, and there are instructions to that dance.
Can we start that?
Okay, alright. First one's a dance. Alright, so let me set the scene, okay? Story about a man dancing with a woman, and the woman wants more, alright? The carnival is in session. We're going back to Strauss here, but wine is a style of dance that you see all over the Caribbean. You move your hips. No, not that kind. It's like wind, like winding up, winding the waist, alright? Imagine a cent piece in your left pocket. Swing your hips to the left. Cent. And then 5 cents in your right pocket. Swing your hips. 5 cents. Then you've got 10 cents in your back pocket. Stick out your bum. And then you've got $1 tucked into the front of your trousers, your waistband. And go forward, $1. Cross forward. Cent, 5 cents, 10 cents, $1. Cent, 5 cents, 10 cents, $1. And it's cross forward. So that's the dance move. Before we get into the technicalities, we're talking about soca. Okay, this is the genre that we're talking about. What is soca? Soul calypso, the soul of calypso. It has influences from West African and East Indian rhythms particularly. So, Tim, when you were playing the chords beneath, it's quite busy. You're moving a lot in terms of quite a lot going on there.
Let me just ask you one thing, Chris. You said you thought that this policy was a distraction from, for example, the fall in living standards, but do you accept that some people are legitimately concerned about people coming across the channel on small boats? And in fact, the very act of coming across the channel on small boats has led to some people dying.
Yeah, I think obviously people are concerned about that, and especially here, as we've seen in this area, there have been drownings, and that is horrendous for people to watch. This is a real issue. I'm not saying that it's not a real issue. What I'm saying is that the government is exploiting this issue as kind of red meat to its face. You know, we know this is what the Rwanda plan is. We know that this is why it's become such a big defining issue within the Conservative Party. It's one part of the Conservative Party basically trying to cling on to those who want to fight the next election on a culture war, people like Lee Anderson who are going to defect to reform if that isn't what happens. And, you know, ultimately, I think that is making the country and our political debate much worse off.
You've heard some of the criticism there, and of course some of your colleagues in the Lords have expressed their own concerns, Conservative colleagues have expressed their own concerns about the government's approach here.
And some of the friends of mine, and I disagree with them on this, but I think you need to put this in a bit of perspective. The idea that this has been in some way perfected, as Grace is saying, is just not true factually, that people have tried in various ways to get across the channel illegally for quite a long time. It's more than 10 years since I was Immigration Minister, and at the time, a lot of our attention was devoted to people coming across in the backs of lorries. Also dangerous, not as dangerous as the small boats, but again, we had tragedies there where some people died. And we pretty much stopped that in cooperation with the French by basically putting X-ray machines in at Calais and at Eurotunnel. And it shows that with cooperation, you can actually stop this traffic, and it is really important that we can control our borders. This is one of the definitions of a country, that you can control who comes in and out. And there are many problems about the numbers of legal immigrants as well, but it ought to be, I think, not a matter of political controversy, that trying to control your borders, trying to stop illegal immigration is actually good for the unity of the country and a healthy society, because if we don't control our borders, then there are pressures on public services, there is pressure on the welfare state, which people regard as unfair.
Public services isn't coming from people arriving in small boats, it's coming from the fact that they have been underfunded because of the austerity that has been imposed on this country for a very, very long time.
One of the interesting left-wing arguments against uncontrolled immigration, which I think was first mooted by David Goodhart in Prospect magazine, a sort of centre-left magazine, is that if you have a welfare state, then people happy to pay in, and rich people pay in more, which is quite right, and we all take from it when we can. But you need to feel that there's a mutual obligation from everyone in this country. So people
Why is it that it's only when we're talking about refugees that Conservatives seem to actually care about the welfare
I
state?
care about the welfare state all the
They've
time.
been underfunded for an extremely long time. Okay? Not just the NHS, social care, children's social care, all these services are breaking because we haven't got enough money or
I've written
resources.
papers on social care. There are plenty of Conservatives like me who care about and think about the welfare state and want to preserve it in the 21st century. One of the things you have to preserve a welfare state is a sense of mutual obligation among everyone in society. And anything that's divisive, and illegal immigration does become divisive, actually makes a welfare state more difficult to maintain. And I want to maintain the welfare state.
Okay, you're failing to tackle it. Rwanda's costing at least £500 million. You talk about the National Crime Agency, 25 million. The scale is very different. If you're really serious about tackling this, work with the agencies we've got.
Well, we are, and that they've set a level of compensation which they recommend and have gone straight to Parliament. The government hasn't decided yet what to do, but for what it's worth, I think it would be sensible to listen to what the Ombudsman said and actually pay the compensation level that has been recommended. That it seems to me the best way out of it is to listen to the Ombudsman and do what the Ombudsman has recommended.
So I think the recommendation from the Ombudsman was suggesting women should receive a payout between £1,000 and just under £3,000, but the Ombudsman's report seems to indicate they're not very confident that the government's actually going to do that. This is what DWP, the Department for Work and Pensions, told us. Leads us to strongly doubt it will provide a remedy. Meg Hillier, should Labour commit to this? Well, I think it's above my pay grade to make an unfunded spending commitment of what could be up to £10 million, but it's a serious report and a serious issue. I think there's two things that really strike me on it. One, I do agree with Damien actually that levelling the pension aid was the right thing to do in principle. But if you tinker with pensions, you need to give a proper long running time because it's hugely impacted on the people concerned. And at our peril do we change pensions willy-nilly. And the government bringing forward the date again in 2011 after the 1995 original decision is particularly egregious. So we need to help people plan better for their retirement generally. But on the compensation, I've been quite concerned about this as chair of the Public Accounts Committee. You see a number of compensation schemes either being proposed or discussed, just in no particular order: Windrush, gay veterans, the post office, and so on. And there is no common approach to how to deal with this. It's rather haphazard. And some people in some of these schemes are dying before they receive any compensation. So I think when we are considering this, the government and Parliament and the Labour Party, we need to be looking at that too, to make sure that anything that is agreed or not is done with a proper, thoughtful process and in a way that actually works, if that's what does actually happen. Okay. Jonathan Sumption, I mean, Meg outlined there some of the other areas where compensation is a very active question, and when you pile them up, you are looking at sort of a pool of billions being paid for the mistakes of government past. Is that the right approach? How do we approach this?
I mean, I've got some sympathy for Meg's view that one should be quite careful about the number of compensation funds that one I've got my questions. Governments make mistakes, sometimes foolish mistakes, sometimes understandable mistakes. It seems to me that one has to be a limit to the extent to which you can go back historically and try and remedy every mistake that has ever been made. Pensions are a time bomb. They have been for a very long time. We are living longer. We cannot afford to take retirement at the age when people are taking retirement. That has got to change. Of course, it should be better prepared. It should be better explained. It should have been staggered. It should have started earlier. But all of that is past history. What is absolutely clear is that we have got to do radical things with the pension scheme system at the moment. Otherwise, we are going to find that the younger generation in the future are going to be supporting a completely intolerable burden, and they're going to refuse to do it, and we'll then be much worse off.
Well, this is, I think this is a really important point because our pension system at the moment is unstable and very unfair. We have one of the lowest state pensions of all pension amounts of all OECD countries. And whilst, there has been some argument for raising pension age in the past, what is really unfair about this system is that because of cuts to healthcare, because of rising inequality, we have these massive health disparities in healthy life expectancy in different parts of the country. There's a 15-year gap in life expectancy between the wealthiest and the poorest parts of the country. And this often means that many people will simply not be able to draw down their pension and actually live life and live retirement. Then there's the fact that many pension schemes, even in the private sector, are unsustainable and they have massive deficits. Many people in my generation basically never expect to retire, right? Because a big part of retirement now, because the state pension is so low and pension schemes are struggling so much, is the idea that you have to accumulate assets that you can then draw down when you get older. For many people, especially of my generation, there is not much. The poorest people of my generation will never be able to own houses in the way that people that are older than them have. And also, they're certainly not going to be able to accrue the kind of capital gains that people who are retiring now, who bought houses in the 1980s, were able to do so. So this question is really a question of how we organise what has become an asset-owning economy, where we're all expected to kind of individually manage the risks that accrue to us over the course of our lives, rather than doing what we used to do and actually take responsibility for one another, take responsibility for caring for one another, for supporting one another, and actually thinking about, right, how do we solve this issue of a demographic aging, of an aging population, together, rather than just as individuals.
Thank you all very much. This may be something that we return to, but in the short term, if you are somebody who's been affected by this, like Leslie, then Leslie need to know, because I'm sure that she would love to hear how this has impacted you and your thoughts, not just on the compensation scheme, but the wider discussion around pensions, as you've heard some of our panellists raise. 03700 100 A reminder that you're listening to Any Questions on BBC Radio 4. We are at Women's Church in Hyde on the coast, and on our panel we have Damien Green, the former Deputy Prime Minister, Meg Hillier, the Chair of the Public Accounts Committee, the former Supreme Court Justice Jonathan Sumption, and the author and commentator Grace Blakely. And our next question, which comes from Nigel Testis. Hello, Nigel.
Hello, thank you. What steps can be taken to return the fit economically
together? It has undermined the public services that keep people healthy, that keep people safe, and that allow them to contribute economically to society. So, if we're going to tackle any of these problems, we need to invest in supporting one another, in caring one another, and actually supporting people back into work those ways.
This is clearly a problem that's been recognised and articulated by the Chancellor, who's tried to address it with some of measures in recent budgets. Damien Green, do you agree with Grace Blakely's assessment of the reasons behind this and the solutions to it?
No, I think the problem with Grace is that she uses austerity as a bulwark, and it's completely meaningless, particularly in this context. I do agree with her. I do agree with her that a lot of the current increased problems with mental health does stem from COVID. We have to remember that when you're talking about austerity, that we spent something like £450 billion actually keeping people's jobs alive through the furlough system. The idea that this government over the past few years has not spent enough in those areas is, I would put it politely, hugely contestable. We spent hundreds of billions of pounds, quite rightly, keeping people's jobs alive. Now, the problem is that people were detached from the world of work and communities for 2 years, and so now we have, as people have observed, a mental health crisis, which is keeping people who otherwise we would expect to be at work away from work, and absolutely it's important to deal with that. One of the reasons we're spending millions of pounds more on mental health services, which need improving, I would absolutely agree. But there are other things we need to do with the welfare system, because in the end, the best route, not just to prosperity, but to good health and well-being, is a job. And we are extremely good in this country at creating jobs. We have got historically very low unemployment levels. So what we need to do is reintroduce people who could work and who want to work back to the world of work, because not only is that better for the economy, it's better for them as well.
I think the record number of children living in poverty would disagree with you that austerity is a meaningless buzzword. I think people who are dying waiting for ambulances, dying on waiting lists in the NHS would disagree with you that austerity is a meaningless buzzword. Austerity might be a real thing for the rich. Damien, bless your heart for mistakes, but it is real for everyone else.
I don't know how much more taxpayers' money you would want any government to have spent than we spent.
Hang on, one at a time.
is very happy to spend taxpayers' money on bailing out big businesses and
The
supporting their
government
brands.
spends very little on bailing out big businesses. The government spent a lot during COVID on the furlough scheme. It's spending a lot
50% of the money
It's
that was
spending
raised
record
under
amounts
the
of
furlough
money
scheme
on the
ended up
NHS.
going back to
And I'm
landlords.
sorry you don't want to hear any of
Thank
this.
you both very
just
much.
try and shout
Thank you
across
both
it.
very much. I want to bring in the rest of the panel. Jonathan Sumption.
Look, it's not true to say that people lost the habit of working due to COVID. They lost the habit of working due to the lockdown. The lockdown was a man-made disaster. It involved paying people not to work, the great majority of whom were at no risk of serious illness. It was a really very serious mistake. The very few countries who have not engaged in this particularly disastrous experiment have done much better on this route. Having said that, I do accept that there is a very serious problem about mental health. However, I find it impossible to accept that the scale of mental health reported, the scale of people who are not working because of mental health issues is entirely genuine. It seems to me that the absence from work of such a large proportion, particularly young people, is only partly due to genuine health problems.
So you agree in some way with the characterisation? Do you agree then with the characterisation that Mel Stryker gives when he said there's a real risk now that we're labelling the normal ups and downs of human life as medical conditions when they actually serve to hold people back and ultimately drive up the benefit bill?
I think that is true in a significant proportion.
What about this question about lack of access to mental health services and waiting lists?
That is a real problem. The NHS has not been good at dealing with mental health issues. It's not been as good as some continental countries have. There's no doubt about that.
I think there's a real intergenerational divide here between a group of people who have kind of ridden a wave of prosperity and are now nearing retirement. Often they've been able to build up substantial capital gains in their homes, they have large pensions, and have lived through a booming economy, looking down at young people who, people of my generation, have lived through successive economic crises, cannot afford for the life of them to get on the housing ladder, dealing with climate breakdown, dealing with what seems like a
hold that thought, Grace, because we have a panelist who's yet to have their say. So I may come back to you on that, but Meg Hilly, you've been waiting patiently. Just a reminder of the question, because we're going to have to move on from it slightly. What steps can be taken to return the fit, economically inactive back to work, Meg Hilly?
Well, I think the point here is that the fit people. So let's go back to them. And I think certainly the lockdown and COVID definitely had an impact. People are looking at their work-life balance. And so I think there's two things that really need to happen. One is that we need to value particularly older workers who may have chosen that time to retire early and actually bring them back with their experience, which requires employers to allow some flexibility about the type of work they create, because actually we don't all need to work full-time, full tilt. And actually having that experience back in the workplace, I think, is a really important thing. But also employers have a really important role here, including around mental health support, actually, to make sure that they are acting to support their workforce to be as creative and as economic, as active as possible. But I think that there are a lot of people out there who would be really valuable in the workplace because of their life experience, and they are still not all back at work.
The big problem is not at the older people scale. What all the figures seem to suggest is that the people who have pulled out of the workforce are overwhelmingly much younger people.
But there is most of the original but actually singing the actuality, singing the songs.
Parker became a highly sought-after guest lecturer for the unions and on the university circuit, expounding his views on oral history and mass communication, and often vigorously challenging his audiences. Commuting between Birmingham and wherever the occasion required, while actively engaged with Banner Theatre, meant that the weight and volume of the work began to tell, even for a man as driven as Charles Parker.
We were rehearsing at Holyhead School. Rehearsal thing, we used to go to football around. I went over and there was a empty glass of beer on the table. So it was Johnny. He took him on and took him to the hospital. I was involved. So went down to the hospital and we were there that evening, and he was ill, and then he died that night.
Was he conscious?
No.
The former Beatle, John Lennon, has been shot dead outside
Monday, December the 8th, 1980, is forever infamous as the day John Lennon was shot. What didn't make the headlines that day was that one of radio's greatest pioneers, Charles Parker, had also died. This great man of radio was and is revered by friends, colleagues, and by producers down to the present day. His work continues to resonate more than 60 years after the broadcasting of the first radio ballad. The legacy continues.
He was a perfectionist, and he wanted you to be a perfectionist along with him.
And I always felt it was the apogee of everything I did in radio. It's something I have boasted of for years.
You were so used to the spoon-fed that you were not going to do that for you.
He would cut for drama and effect, and I think that actually is quite important for me.
Whatever we may have in terms of computers, in terms of technology and satellites and so on and so forth, the human voice is still our most potent form of information. And if we don't recover this power, then we die.
Charles Parker, radio pioneer, was presented by Professor Sean Street and produced by Andy Cartwright as a soundscape production for BBC Radio 4. And all next week we can hear the winners of the Charles Parker Prize, an annual student radio feature award set up in his honour. That's in New Storytellers at 9:45 each weekday morning here on BBC Radio 4. Look at the weather now. Tomorrow, showers will spread further southeastwards, and for most of us there'll be variable clouds, scattered showers and a few sunny spells. For northern Scotland, the showers will continue wintry on the hills, and southern areas may have a number of thunder, which will remain windy. It'll be drier and brighter on Sunday, but eastern areas will see a few lingering showers. This is Radio 4.
Hello, good evening. It's 10 o'clock. Welcome to The World Tonight with Gabriel Gatehouse. The Princess of Wales has revealed she's receiving treatment for cancer, saying the news came as a huge shock, but that she's focused on making a full recovery.
The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present. My medical team therefore advised that I should undergo a course of preventative chemotherapy, and I'm now in the early stages of that treatment.
We'll look at the timeline that led up to this evening's announcement and speak to somebody who's worked with her.
She's one of the kindest, most compassionate people that I've had the privilege to meet, but she's also very strong. So I thought it was very brave of her to come out in the way that she has done today.
Also tonight, the authorities in Russia say at least 40 people have been killed in an attack on a concert hall near Moscow. We heard gunshots. And I personally saw how the terrorists came in, and they started shooting at everyone. In the end, they threw a petrol bomb and everything was set on fire. The Israeli Prime Minister says he'll go ahead with a planned ground assault on the Gazan city of Rafah with or without support. That's all after the BBC News. Ready tonight later on. The Princess of Wales has revealed that she's being treated for cancer. Catherine stepped back from royal duties when she had abdominal surgery in January. In a video message published this evening, she says the news came as a huge shock, but that she is getting stronger every day. It's focused on making a full recovery. Our royal correspondent, Johnny Diamond, reports.
In the video message, the Princess speaks of the incredibly tough couple of months just gone. She went into hospital in mid-January for an abdominal operation. At the time, the palace said it was non-cancerous, but post-operative tests did find cancer. It was, says the Princess, a huge shock. She says she is well and getting stronger. The palace says she is on a recovery pathway, having commenced a course of preventative chemotherapy in late February. Further details of her treatment, it says, will not be forthcoming. The Princess speaks of the joy her work brings her, but says for now she will focus on her recovery. Her husband, William, the Prince of Wales, is expected to return to public engagements once their children return to school after Easter. The Princess asks for time, space and privacy while she completes her treatment. To those facing cancer, she says, do not lose faith or hope. You are not alone.
There's been an outpouring of support for the Princess of Wales. Buckingham Palace said the King was so proud of Catherine for her courage. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex said they wished her health and healing.
Rishi Sunak praised what he called her tremendous bravery and said she had the love and support of the whole country. The Labour leader, Keir Starmer, sent his very best wishes to the princess. The White House said its thoughts were with her and wished her a full recovery. Russian security services say at least 40 people have been killed and more than 100 wounded in an attack at a concert hall near Moscow. Footage on social media shows at least 4 people dressed in camouflage clothing opening fire as they enter the lobby of Krokus City Hall in Krasnogorsk. Our Russia editor Steven Rosenberg is monitoring developments.
Shortly before the start of a rock concert, a number of gunmen stormed into the concert hall, Krokus City Hall, which is near Moscow, quite a prominent concert venue, and began shooting. We don't know yet how many gunmen there were, and the situation still continuing. So the latest information is that a number of special force groups have gone into the building, have stormed the building. The building is on fire. The Moscow mayor, Sergei Sobyanin, has called this a terrible tragedy. The Russian Foreign Ministry has called it a bloody terrorist attack. All sporting, cultural events, mass public events have been cancelled in Moscow in light of this, and security has been stepped up at airports, train stations, places like that.
The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has accused Russia and China of having cynically vetoed the draft resolution of the UN Security Council which backed calls for an immediate ceasefire. The proposal was put forward by the United States at a time when its relations with Israel are strained. Mr. Blinken earlier visited Tel Aviv where he urged against a ground offensive in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. But the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, said the planned operation will go ahead even without American support. From Jerusalem, here's Mark Lowen.
America's top diplomat came to Israel with a clear warning that if Benjamin Netanyahu pursues an invasion of Rafah, where an estimated 1.5 million Gazans are sheltering, he risks further isolating his country and failing to destroy Hamas. Antony Blinken said the US believes there is another way, which will be laid out to Israeli officials visiting Washington next week. But for now, it appears American pressure is falling on deaf ears. Israel's Prime Minister said he told Mr. Blinken that if he didn't have US support for a Rafah incursion, in his words, we'll do it alone. It doesn't raise much hope for the peace talks that continue in Doha. The Secretary of State said the gaps between the sides were few, but added the closer you get to the goal line, the harder the last yard is.
The Football Association has defended the St George's Cross design on its New England kit, saying it's not the first time different colours have been used. It said the purple and blue stripes were meant as a tribute to the 1966 World Cup winning team, but the shirt has faced criticism from many people, including Rishi Sunak.
Obviously, I prefer the original, and my general view is that when it comes to our national flag, we should mess with them, because they're a source of pride, identity, who we are, and they're perfect as they are.
A merger involving Donald Trump's social media company has been approved, providing a potential boost to the finances of the former president as he struggles with rocketing legal bills. Shareholders of the publicly traded Shell company voted to merge with Trump Media, which includes the app Truth Social. The deal values Mr. Trump's stake at about $3 billion. West Yorkshire Police are investigating racist comments allegedly made in 2019 by the major Conservative donor Frank Hester about Britain's first female black MP, Diane Abbott. The force said it was examining whether a crime had been committed. Our political correspondent Helen Catt reports.
Earlier this month, The Guardian reported remarks that it claimed Mr. Hester, who was given £10 million to the Tories, had made at a meeting of his software company in 2019. The paper claimed that he had said that Ms Abbott made him want to hate all black women and that she should be shot. West Yorkshire Police said it was investigating what it described as racist comments which were allegedly made at a meeting in 2019. Asked about the investigation, Rishi Sunak said it wouldn't be right to comment on police matters, but that what Mr Hester had reportedly said was wrong and racist, and he had rightly apologised for it. Mr Hester has previously admitted making rude comments about Ms Abbott, but said they had nothing to do with her gender or colour of her skin.
That report from Helen Catt.
Thank you, John. You're listening to The World Tonight with Gabriel Walters. As we've been hearing, the Princess of Wales is having treatment for cancer. There have been months of intense speculation about her health. This evening, she released a personal video statement. Let's just listen to the thing.
I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you personally for all the wonderful messages of support and for your understanding whilst I've been recovering from surgery. It has been an incredibly tough couple of months for our entire family, but I've had a fantastic medical team who've taken great care of me, for which I'm so grateful. In January, I underwent major abdominal surgery in London, and at the time, it was thought that my condition was non-cancerous. The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present. My medical team therefore advised that I should undergo a course of preventative chemotherapy, and I'm now in the early stages of that treatment. This, of course, came as a huge shock, and William and I have been doing everything we can to process and manage this privately for the sake of our young family. As you can imagine, this has taken time. It has taken me time to recover from major surgery in order to start my treatment, but most importantly, it has taken us time to explain everything to George, Charlotte and Louis in a way that's appropriate for them and to reassure them that I'm going to be okay. As I've said to them, I am well and getting stronger every day by focusing on the things that will help me heal in my mind, body and spirits. Having William by my side is a great source of comfort and reassurance too, as is the love, support and kindness that has been shown by so many of you. It means so much to us both. We hope that you'll understand that as a family, we now need some time, space and privacy while I complete my treatment. My work has always brought me a deep sense of joy, and I look forward to being back when I'm able. But for now, I must focus on making a full recovery. At this time, I'm also thinking of all those whose lives have been affected by cancer. For everyone facing this disease, in whatever form, please do not lose faith or hope. You are not alone.
A clearly emotional statement there from the Princess of Wales, where she made her last official public appearance with the royal family at Sandringham for Christmas.
Thank you so much. That's very sweet of you to come over. Say hello to us. Yeah, well, have a very happy Christmas.
He was admitted to hospital for abdominal surgery in January, and then at the end of February, he was suddenly pulled out of a Thanksgiving service at Windsor, citing a personal matter which increased the speculation. On Mother's Day, there was that Kensington Palace released a picture of Kate with her two children. It was intended to reassure the public and take some of the pressure off. It did the opposite when agencies withdrew the picture because it had been digitally altered. That sparked a total media frenzy on social media. Johnny Diamond is our royal correspondent.
We know that after an operation in mid-January that the palace had said was not cancerous, there were post-operative tests that found cancer. We know that in late February, the princess began what is described as preventative chemotherapy, which is this, the palace says rather, that she is on the path to recovery. We know that she was going to start resuming public engagements after Easter. That will now not happen. And I think we can take it pretty clearly from the palace's statements that that is about all we are going to get to know. But as far as what the cancer is, what kind of treatment there is, what the expectation of any return to work is, that is firmly behind the curtain. The palace has stressed that that is a private national matter. And I think they probably think, and I have to say as the royal correspondent, they have revealed an enormous amount in a rather novel way with this video as well. It's been fairly upfront.
Just take us through the timeline, Johnny, as it relates to the intense speculation that we've seen over the last few months.
Sure. I mean, we had this announcement from the palace in early mid-January, that the princess was going to go in for abdominal surgery, and she would then recover for approximately 10 weeks. They talked about not coming back to work until after Easter. And for, I suppose, 2 or 3 weeks, that satisfied people. And then there was a sort of head of steam building up, primarily, it has to be said, on social media, which have turned into Where's Kate? Thrown into the mix, of course, was the announcement that the King had cancer and was being treated for cancer. And then there was this sort of fairly wild time, I think, fair to say, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, which one palace official described to me bluntly as mad, where the speculation increased and increased and increased, and then, of course, an own goal by the palace, by the Prince and Princess. They released a photo of the Princess with her 3 children, which was taken by Prince William, and subsequently international